Chapter 36, 61. Zhuowen did not leave immediately after destroying the base the mechanical life forms had built in the depths of the natural moat. Instead, he set his eyes on the chaotic starry sky outside the boundary, where Gongji Lu, NIC, and the heartless and desireless Pearl were still fighting. Gong Qilyu and NIC took out talismans and powerful heaven-breaking divine artifacts as they fought with the heartless and desireless Pearl. However, the heartless and desireless Pearl was not to be trifled with. It kept spewing out terrifying blood-red light, and tangled with Gong Qilyu and NIC, Zhuowen could see that the heartless and desireless Pearl's power was far from being unleashed. After all, this Pearl belonged to the Saint Lord of 7 emotions and 6 desires. If it could unleash its full power, Gong Qilyu and NIC would be killed instantly. However, even so, Gongji Lu and NIC were gradually losing. Zhuowen stood at the border of the natural moat and waited silently. Gong Qilyu and NIC were too much of a threat to him. With his current strength, it was no problem for him to deal with one of them. However, if the two of them joined forces, Zhuowen would be no match for them. However, this was a godsend opportunity. Both Gong Qilyu and NIC were being held back by the heartless and desireless Pearl, and were severely injured. If he attacked, there was a high chance that he could kill the two of them. Of course, Zhuowen was still waiting. He was waiting for the best opportunity. Puff! Gong Qilyu and NIC both grunted and spat out blood as they retreated a few thousand steps. Senior brother, this heartless and desireless Pearl is strange. Wasn't it said that the heartless and desireless Pearl was useless? Is it useless? How can it be so powerful? NIC said with a pale face. Originally, the two of them had been waiting in the divine ship for news of the Golden Corner Divine Lord's triumphant return. Unexpectedly, the heartless and desireless Pearl suddenly rushed out and left the natural moat, heading toward the depths of the chaotic moat. They recognized it at a glance. It was the famous heartless and desireless Pearl of the Nuwa clan. However, the heartless and desireless Pearl was too useless, so it fell into someone else's hands. Gongji Lu had originally planned to grab her casually and play around with her. He did not take her seriously. However, what he didn't expect was that when he stopped the merciless, desireless Pearl, he would actually vomit blood from the powerful energy that suddenly erupted from the Pearl. Only then did he and NIC realize that the ruthless, desireless Pearl was not simple. There must be a huge secret within it. Therefore, the two people who harbored evil intentions naturally used all of their abilities in order to completely grasp the ruthless and desireless Pearl. That was why it evolved into this great battle. However, what the two of them did not expect was that the ruthless and desireless Pearl was actually so terrifying, completely suppressing them. Moreover, the bead seemed to have been angered. The two of them did not intend to stop the bead, but the bead did not let them go. It actually chased after them and attacked them. It wanted to kill them. Senior brother, what should we do? This merciless, desireless Pearl is too strange. If this continues, it will be too disadvantageous for us. NIC's beautiful eyes revealed a worried expression. She could not help but look at Zhuowen and continued, moreover, that Zhuowen is still eyeing us from the border. After Gongji Lu blocked the ruthless and desireless Pearl's attack with difficulty, he glanced at Zhuowen's figure in the distance and said disdainfully, "No matter, he's just a clown. If he rushes over, I can crush him with a single finger." Gongji Lu and NIC truly did not put Zhuowen in their eyes. Although Zhuowen had indeed blocked Gongji Lu's attack, it was just a casual attack from Gongji Lu. In his opinion, Zhuowen was just lucky. If Zhuowen still did not know what was good for him and dared to attack him, then it would be exactly what Gongji Lu wanted. He would take the opportunity to kill Zhuowen and take his spiritual ring. He wanted to see how this ant cultivated broken divine force. "Senior brother, be careful. This bead's power has increased again." Just as Gong Ji Lu was thinking about Zhuowen, an IC's terrified voice sounded. Gong Ji Lu immediately came back to his senses. He was shocked to find that the ruthless and desireless pearl was bursting with endless bloodlight. Within this bloodlight, a strange and sharp blood shadow swept out and suddenly pierced Gong Ji Lu's chest. The blood shadow's speed was so fast that Gong Ji Lu did not have time to defend himself. Without exception, Gong Ji Lu's chest was pierced by the blood shadow. Uffed, Gong Ji Lu spat out a large mouthful of blood and was sent flying by the blood shadow. Only then did he notice that the blood shadow's true appearance was actually a rusty blood spear. The blood spear pierced through his body, and his wound could not be healed at all. Blood flowed out and splashed continuously under the starry sky. It was at this moment that Zhuowen moved. He took a step out of the boundary, and his entire body turned into an afterimage. The terrifying pressure in the chaotic starry sky was like countless mountains crushing down on Zhuowen's body. It was as if he was going to explode. The pressure was indeed terrifying. However, to the current Zhuowen, this pressure was no different from scratching an itch. Although his cultivation base had not reached the heaven-crushing stage, with the heaven-defying primordial chaos technique and the powerful shattering divine power surging within his body, his strength was already comparable to the heaven-crushing stage. In fact, the strength of his physical body was not inferior to that of an ordinary divine transformation stage cultivator. "And you dare?" In the chaotic starry sky, Gong Ji Lu, who had his chest pierced and was being forcefully dragged back by the blood spear, naturally saw Zhuowen rushing toward him. He also saw the dense killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes. This caused Gong Ji Lu to explode with rage. Gong Ji Lu forcefully suppressed the injuries in his body and secretly circulated his power, waiting for Zhuowen to approach. As long as Zhuowen approached him, he would immediately unleash a full-powered attack. This attack could even kill a divine transformation stage cultivator, let alone Zhuowen, who was just an ant in his eyes. "Die! A mere ant dares to sneak attack me? How foolish!" The instant Zhuowen approached Gong Ji Lu, the latter struck out with his right palm. The accumulated energy turned into a terrifying shockwave that blasted toward Zhuowen. Gong Ji Lu's attack was too sudden, and he had forcefully used his full strength. His injuries had become even more serious, but he was very happy. He hated the ant Zhuowen, and now this ant would be personally dealt with by him. However, Zhuowen's gaze was calm. He was not surprised by Gong Ji Lu's sudden attack at all. Zhuowen raised the back of his right hand and used his divine will to communicate with the talisman on the back of his hand, summoning the Desire God. Bang! Gong Ji Lu's attack, which he had been accumulating for a long time, all landed on the Desire God. The Desire God blocked with both hands, barely blocking the terrifying shockwave. However, he grunted as a result and retreated extremely far away. "What?" Gong Ji Lu looked at the Desire God, who had been sent flying and was completely stunned. He did not expect Zhuowen to suddenly summon someone to block his attack. Now is not the time to be distracted. You should think carefully about who will hold your funeral for you. Chapter 36:62. Sword Slash. Zhuowen raised the sword fingers on his right hand high up as he stared coldly at Gong Ji Lu. Then, under the latter's shocked gaze, his right hand slashed down. The divine sword fell to the ground and smashed into Gong Ji Lu's body. Then, the green lotus flames erupted like a volcano and suddenly exploded. The dense cyan flames spread out in all directions in a ring-shaped manner at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, A large area of the surrounding starry sky had turned into a vast sea of cyan flames. In the sky above the sea of flames, a green lotus slowly bloomed, as if it was some kind of ceremony. Zhuowen didn't let his guard down. He once again unleashed a streak of spiritual sword intent and smashed it into the sea of flames. The sea of flames once again experienced a terrifying explosion, and a heart-wrenching scream could be heard from within the explosion. No, senior brother. Nic's beautiful face instantly paled when she saw Gongji Lu drowned in the sea of flames. She didn't even think before fleeing towards the divine ship in an attempt to escape. She and Gongji Lu had joined forces, but they were still severely suppressed by the merciless, desireless Pearl. Now, that Gongji Lu's fate was unknown. Facing the merciless, desireless Pearl alone was akin to seeking death. However, before Nic could reach the divine ship, another streak of blood shot out from the merciless, desireless Pearl. It pierced through Nic's back and ruthlessly nailed her to the deck of the divine ship. This streak of blood was exactly the same as the one that had pierced through Gongji Lu's body. Splat! Nic lay on the deck, her entire body twitching. Her beautiful eyes were filled with hatred as she yelled, "Merciless, desireless Pearl, you're the sacred item of my Nuwa clan. Why are you attacking my clansmen?" Unfortunately, before Nic could finish her sentence, another streak of blood pierced through the air and pierced through her head. Meanwhile, Nic was completely silent as she died on the deck of the divine ship. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with horror. The merciless, desireless Pearl's power was actually so terrifying. It had killed Nic in just a few moves. After all, Nic was a Heaven Breaker second transformation elite. After killing Nic, the merciless, desireless Pearl didn't stay any longer and shot through the air. Wait! Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He kicked off with his right foot and quickly chased after the merciless, desireless Pearl. However, the merciless, desireless Pearl was simply too fast, and its speed was getting faster and faster. In just a few breaths of time, he had already completely left Zhuowen far behind. Zhuowen stopped and looked at the bead that had turned into Xiao He. His face was extremely ugly. That is the 100 Outer Realms. Suddenly, Zhuowen noticed that the direction in which the merciless and desireless bead had left was shockingly where the 100 territories were located. Although Zhuowen had never been to the 100 territories before, he had seen the outline of the 100 territories through the primordial chaos path. Therefore, he knew the general direction of the 100 territories. The direction in which the merciless, desireless Pearl flew was the same as the direction in which the primordial chaos way had originated. Although Zhuowen did not know why the heartless and desireless Pearl had suddenly left, he knew that it had something to do with him taking the 7 emotions steel. Now, he was mainly worried about Moyan Wushang. Although Moyan Wushang's cultivation was not bad, he was only at the 5th decay. In the 100 territories, he was at the bottom. However, Zhuowen thought of the 6 desires ring's function in Moyan Wushang's hands and felt a little more at ease. The 6 desires ring had the ability to change the flow of time. As long as Moyan Wushang made good use of this ability, his cultivation speed would definitely be above his. Although Moyan Wushang looked a little weak on the surface, Zhuowen knew that Wushang was actually soft on the outside but tough on the inside. In addition, he had obtained the inheritance of the 7 emotions, 6 desires, Saint Lord. Moyan Wushang would have no problem protecting himself in the 100 territories. Thinking of this, Zhuowen returned to the starry sky. The pressure in the chaotic starry sky was already a little terrifying. Even Zhuowen was almost unable to withstand it. Naturally, he could not force himself to continue chasing after Moyan Wushang, not to mention whether or not he could catch up. At least if he continued to go deeper into the chaotic starry sky, he would definitely lose his way and eventually die in the chaotic starry sky. Since he already knew that the heartless and desireless Pearl was headed to the 100 Territories, then after he finished dealing with the matters in the starry sky, he would step onto the primordial path and head to the 100 Territories. When he reached the 100 Territories, he would slowly ask for information about the heartless and desireless Pearl. However, Zhuowen did not know that Moyan Wushang had no choice now. The heartless and desireless Pearl was not under her control. The heartless and desireless Pearl's artifact spirit had awakened and brought the Pearl to the cave residence of the 7 Emotions, 6 Desires Saint Lord. Moreover, Moyan Wushang could not leave the Pearl at the moment unless her cultivation reached the heaven-crushing 7th transformation. She didn't know when she would be able to cultivate to the heaven-crushing 7 transformations or above. Zhuowen returned to the border of the heavenly moat and was shocked to find that Gongji Lu and NIC's divine ship had disappeared. Gongji Lu, who had been severely injured by his divine soul sword intent and was on the verge of death, was also gone. Zhuowen's face darkened. He knew that he had been careless. Gongji Lu had suffered such serious injuries and was on the verge of death, yet he still had the energy to escape. At this moment, Zhuowen felt a strong sense of danger surging into his heart. Splat! At the same time, a green divine arrow appeared in the middle of his back and pierced through his body. Fortunately, Zhuowen's reaction was fast enough, and he avoided being hit in the heart. This divine arrow pierced through his shoulder blade. Zhuowen quickly retreated. He turned around and saw that not far away, a divine ship had appeared from the depths of the void. Gongji Lu was barely standing on the deck. He held a divine arrow in his right hand and a divine bow in his left hand. He was facing Zhuowen. At this moment, Gongji Lu did not look like a human at all. His entire body was charred black, and even one of his eyes was burned away. Zhuowen, you bastard! How dare you sneak attack me? The heartless and desireless Pearl is not here. Let's see how you're going to sneak attack me. Today you'll die for me. Gongji Lu's eyes were filled with hatred. He shouted at Zhuowen and shot another divine arrow. The divine bow in Gongji Lu's hand was a heaven-breaking level 2 divine weapon. It was taken from NIC. This divine bow's power was extraordinary, and its speed was also extremely fast. Zhuowen immediately used the primordial purple snow divine ability. His entire body turned into a purple shadow. Within the purple snow, he constantly dodged Gongji Lu's divine arrows. When Zhuowen approached the divine ship, his body stiffened. There was actually a forbidden space restriction around the divine ship. At this moment, Zhuowen completely stopped. The corners of Gongji Lu's mouth revealed a trace of a sinister smile. He suddenly pulled the divine arrow to a full moon. Bastard, you're hopeless. Gongji Lu laughed. But soon, his expression changed greatly. This was because a palm had grabbed his right hand at some unknown time and immediately changed the direction of his divine bow. Only then did Gongji Lu realize that the owner of this palm was actually the Desire God who had stopped him before. Whoosh! The divine arrow immediately missed. Then, Zhuowen recovered his ability to move. He instantly rushed to Gongji Lu's side. His right hand formed a blade and chopped down. A purple blade light turned into a purple crescent moon and cut Gongji Lu's entire body into two. Chapter 3663. After killing Gongji Lu, Zhuowen burned the corpses of Gongji Lu and NIC on the deck of the ship, taking their spirit rings for himself. Gongji Lu and NIC's ship in particular. The ship wasn't a flying divine artifact, but it could freely travel through the cosmos, much to Zhuowen's delight. Furthermore, Zhuowen realized that the divine ship was much faster than his golden coffin. Clearly, it wasn't an ordinary item. After putting away the divine ship, Zhuo returned to the starry sky and headed towards the valley where the Long family was located in the Xian-Mi heavenly domain. He'd already contacted his clone and knew that the situation in the valley had taken a turn for the worse. His clone had been severely injured in his most recent battle with the Golden Corner Divine Lord. He was now in a semi-unconscious state and had almost no combat ability left. The valley where the Ryuka resided was filled with gloom and gloom. Many of the elites gathered here were wounded, and their faces were filled with despair. Didn't Lord Zhuo say that his master would return soon? It's been so many years. Why hasn't there been any news at all? The Golden Corner Divine Lord's army is already here. Do we still have any hope? I think that the Master Lord Zhuo spoke of is a lie. Even if he does have a master like that, there's no way he'd stay in the lower realms forever. He would have gone to a higher realm long ago. Many cultivators in the valley discussed this in hushed tones. They were all waiting in despair for the Master Zhuo spoke of. But so many years had passed, and the so-called strongest person beneath the cosmos still hadn't appeared. A large portion of the cultivators in the valley had already begun to question Zhuo. Add to that the fact that the Golden Corner Divine Lord's army was closing in on them, and the cultivators' minds began to waver. In the end, it was Taoist Three Purities who urged them to surrender. Three Purities led a group of elites from the Three Purities Street and the Wilderness Street to the main palace of the Ryuka. However, the doors to the main palace were tightly shut. The Black King followed behind the Three Pure Ones with a complicated look in his eyes. He wanted to say something, but hesitated. In the end, he let out a long sigh and said nothing. He understood the Three Pure Ones' thoughts and knew that they were ambitious. However, he couldn't bear it. After all, Ryuka had accepted them and allowed them to take refuge in this valley. It was precisely because of the powerful restrictive formations in the valley that they were able to block the terrifying attacks of the Golden Cosmos Army at the last moment, allowing them to catch their breaths. But now, they had come together to ask the Ryuka leaders to open the array formation and surrender to the golden starry sky. This was like biting the hand that fed them. This was especially true for the three ancestors of the desolate street. They were frowning, and their faces were filled with reluctance. Zhuo had done them a favor, and he had never killed them because of their hostility. They actually knew how to be grateful. However, the Three Pure Ones were currently the strongest cultivators apart from Zhuo. They knew very well that if they did not follow the Three Pure Ones, they would definitely end up in a miserable state. Three Pure Ones, what's the matter with you? My master is still recuperating in the main palace. What are you trying to do by bringing so many people here? The green-haired corpse opened the door and walked out slowly. He looked unkindly at the Three Pure Ones who were leading the group in the courtyard in front of the main palace. The Three Pure Ones smiled and didn't care about the green-haired corpse's attitude. He said calmly, "I'm not trying to do anything. I just want to ask Master Zhuo how long it will take for his master to come here and help us out. The restrictive formations in the valley are powerful, but after such a long period of attacks by the Golden Cosmos Army, it has reached its limit. In less than a month, the formations in the valley will completely collapse. When that happens, we will all die at the hands of the Golden Cosmos Army." The green-haired corpse waved his hand impatiently. "Just wait patiently. My master's master will be here soon. Once he's here, the Golden Cosmos Divine Lord will be nothing. Now, go back to where you came from." The Three Pure Ones stood in place and had no intention of leaving. He grinned and said, "Soon? I don't think so. Hurry up and get Zhuo to come out. I need him to give us an explanation." The green-haired corpse's face was gloomy. He looked coldly at the three pure ones and said, "Three pure ones, are you rebelling? How dare you call my master by his name?" The green-haired corpse was filled with worry. After the third battle with the Golden Cosmos Divine Lord, Zhuowen had been severely injured and was still in a coma. It was because of Zhuowen's poor condition that the three pure ones became more and more arrogant. They even formed a clique in the valley and kept cultivating their own subordinates. Almost all the cultivators who temporarily took refuge in the valley were roped in by the three pure ones. Now that the three pure ones came to ask for an explanation from Zhuowen, they probably guessed that Zhuowen's injuries weren't light. They were here to test Zhuowen. Once the three pure ones knew that Zhuowen was seriously injured and unconscious, the green-haired corpse knew that the three pure ones would definitely attack Zhuowen and eliminate him. The old man wouldn't let him go either. He would definitely refine him alive to increase his strength. Rebel? Ha ha ha. You think we're Zhuowen's dogs like you? The three pure ones sneered and continued, "Get out of the way and get Zhuowen to come out. He must give us an explanation. If he doesn't come out, then don't blame us for attacking the Ryuka. If we surrender all the Ryuka to the Golden Cosmos Divine Lord, then we'll be considered to have made some contributions. If we surrender to the Golden Cosmos Divine Lord, we can keep our lives and even get an official position." The green-haired corpse's face changed. He said angrily, "How dare you? The Ryuka kindly took you in and gave you shelter. How dare you attack the Ryuka?" Three pure ones smiled. He took a step forward with his right foot and turned into a shadow in the air. He flashed past and arrived in front of the green-haired mummy in an instant. The green-haired mummy's pupils shrank to the size of needles. Before it could react, the horsetail whisk in three pure ones' hands turned into white snakes and coiled around its entire body in an instant. So fast, the green-haired corpse wanted to struggle, but it was futile. It was only at the early stage of the fifth blight, while the three pure ones were already at the peak of the fifth blight. The three pure ones had also cultivated the purple extreme spirit art. His strength had already broken through the shackles and was much stronger than before. He was very close to breaking through the heavens. The difference between the green-haired corpse and the three pure ones wasn't small. A mere early stage, fifth blight. Ant dares to be impudent in front of me. Do you believe that I won't destroy you? The three pure ones said calmly. The green-haired corpse exploded with terrifying green flames. Unfortunately, the white hairs on the horsetail whisk in the three pure ones' hands were like a white sea. The green flames were extinguished as soon as they appeared. The green-haired corpse's eyes widened and he screamed, but he didn't beg for mercy. Chapter 36:64. Ha! You're not stupid. If that's the case, before three pure ones could finish, a terrifying black flame emerged from the ground and blasted three pure ones' hand. Three pure ones' expression changed, and he released his right hand, barely dodging the black flame. However, the black flame was not ordinary. A black spark landed on the back of three pure ones' hand and ignited it. Three pure ones snorted, and the white strands of his horsetail whisk wrapped around his right hand, completely extinguishing the black flame. Then three pure ones looked coldly at another figure that walked out of the hall. "Purple Star Lord, you've improved quite quickly." Three pure ones frowned. The other person who came out was Purple Star Lord. At this moment, Purple Star Lord's body was burning with a strange black flame, and within the black flame there was a strange cry. It was the cry of the phoenix. Purple Star Lord had obtained the phoenix's inheritance, and it had helped him a lot. His cultivation speed was unbelievably fast. Originally, Purple Star-Lord's cultivation was far below the green-haired corpses, but now his cultivation had surpassed the corpses, reaching the late stage of the fifth decay. Brother Purple Star-Lord, thank you for saving my life. The green-haired corpse quickly saluted Purple Star-Lord. Purple Star-Lord waved his hand and said, "You're welcome. We're all Ryuka, so we should help each other. However, there are some people who are ungrateful and shameless, and now they want to repay kindness with enmity. Have their hearts been eaten by dogs?" Three Pure Ones narrowed his eyes and sneered, "Brother Purple Star-Lord, you know our situation now. The Golden Universe Army is already at our gates. Zhuowen has been crippled, and I'm afraid he's still unconscious. Even his divine artifact was destroyed by the Golden Universe God Lord. What chance do we have of winning now? You Ryuka want to die, but that doesn't mean we want to die. Why don't you help us and let us hand you over while we surrender to the Golden Universe Army? You Ryuka are doomed anyway." Purple Star-Lord and the green-haired corpse's expressions changed, and their eyes were filled with anger. Black King, Old Ancestor Nine-Tailed Fox, you guys take the lead and capture the Long family clansmen. I'll personally capture Zhuowen and these two fellows. Then I'll open the array and offer them to the Golden Corner God Lord. San Qing instructed indifferently. The Black King's eyes flickered with hesitation. The other forefathers, led by the Nine-Tailed Fox ancestor, were also hesitant. "Brother San Qing, what we're doing is against the laws of nature. After all, Ryuka had helped us before. Why should we make things difficult for Ryuka? Since we have all agreed to surrender, we will leave the valley and go to the Golden Corner Army to surrender. There's no need to involve the Ryuka." The Black King gritted his teeth. Said Yi Futian. The other forefathers also voiced their agreement with the Black King. "Don't you want to contribute? God Lord Golden Corner has already contacted me. As long as we can bring Zhuowen and the Ryuka to the Jinyu Army, it will be a great achievement for us. When the Jinyu Army completely occupies the Wanderer Galaxy, we will all have our own territory. If we surrender now, we won't be able to contribute anything. We will only be ordinary members, and we might even become slaves of the Jinyu Army. Are you willing to surrender yourselves to them, to become slaves? Now, you have a great opportunity in front of you. It will determine your future status and achievements in the Jinyu Galaxy," San Qing said patiently. As soon as he said this, the three forefathers were immediately tempted. They called out to San Qing and led the forefathers to capture the Ryuka. The Black King shook his head and stood where he was. He did not move. "Black King, are you going against me?" San Qing narrowed his eyes. The Black King shook his head and said, "San Qing, I have never thought of standing against you, but I don't want to do anything that goes against my conscience." San Qing laughed coldly and said, "If that's the case, I won't force you. When the Jinyu Army rewards you based on your contributions in the future, don't regret it. You guys have guts. How dare you attack the Long family without permission?" The faces of the green-haired mummy and Star Monarch North Myrtle darkened when they saw the elites of the human and outsider races running around in the valley to capture the Long clan members. They dashed out in an attempt to stop them. However, as soon as they rushed out, they were stopped in midair by a white horsetail whisk. "Crepe Myrtle, Green Hat, your opponent is me." San Qing took a step forward, and countless white horsetail whisk turned into a sea that swept Crepe Myrtle and Green Hair Mummy into it. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, there were terrifying explosions in the sea of white horsetail whisks. Crepe Myrtle and Green Hair Mummy joined forces to fight San Qing. However, from the looks of it, Myrtle Star Sovereign and the green-furred corpse were at a complete disadvantage. It wouldn't be long before the two of them were defeated by the three purities. The Black King watched the battle in the sea of white horsetail whisks, and his fists were clenched tightly. In the end, he released them weakly. In the middle of the main hall, there was a circular shield. There were 5 figures inside the shield. 3 of them were men, and 2 of them were women. One of them was a handsome young man. This youth's face was very young and tender. He was probably around 12 or 13 years old, but his eyes were filled with unswerving determination. He was Zhuo Jun and Zhuo Wen's son. The other 4 were Mu Qinxue, Feng Xiao, Long Xiaotian, and Zhuo Wen's doppelganger. Zhuo Wen's doppelganger was pale and bloodless. His eyes were tightly shut as he lay on Mu Qinxue's thighs. If not for the faint breathing of Zhuo Wen's doppelganger, one would have thought that he was a corpse. "Mother," Uncle Ziwei, Uncle Green Hat, and the others are fighting the old bastards, 3 pure ones outside. I have to go out and help them. Zhuo Junan stood up when he heard the fighting outside. His eyes were filled with anger. "Zhuo Junan, you are not allowed to go. You are too weak. If you go out, you will only die in vain. You will also distract Crepe Myrtle and Green Hat." Mu Qinxue shouted. Zhuo Junan's head drooped as he slammed his fist on the ground and roared, "It's my fault for being too weak. If I had father's strength, I would be able to help him. But I can't do anything now." Mu Qinxue watched as Zhuo Jun and slammed his fists into the ground in self-reproach. Her heart ached as she stopped Zhuo Jun and she gently said, "Jun, and your talent is greater than mine and your father's. Your potential is limitless. You are also our only bloodline. You are also the hope of Ryuka. So listen to me and listen to me. Listen to me, follow your grandfather and grandmother, and leave this place. In the future, the Long family will depend on you." Chapter 36:65. What about father and mother? Zhuo Jun and asked subconsciously. Mu Qinxue sighed and gently stroked Zhuowen's doppelganger, who is still unconscious. "Your father is the pillar of Ryuka. He can't leave, and he shouldn't leave. Your father and I will stay." "No, if father and mother don't leave, then I won't leave either." Zhuo Jun and bit his lips and suppressed his emotions. Mu Qinxue frowned. Just as she was about to scold Zhuowen for being disobedient, she felt some movement from Zhuowen, who was lying on her lap. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. "Husband, you're finally awake," Mu Qinxue said with joy. "Father," when Zhuo Jun and Long Xiaotian and Feng Xiao quickly rushed forward with joy on their faces. "Father, I won't leave you guys behind. If we leave together. If we die together." Zhuo Jun and threw himself into Zhuowen's arms. The emotions that he had been suppressing suddenly exploded. Mu Qinxue felt sad in her heart, but she knows that Zhuo Jun and is Ryuka's future hope. In this time of crisis, they can stay, but Zhuo Jun and must leave. Otherwise, Ryuka's bloodline will end. Zhuowen slowly propped himself up and hugged Zhuo Jun, and he smiled and said, "Jun, and it's okay now. I won't let you guys leave me. Also, from now on, no one can touch Ryuka." Mu Qinxue, Long Xiaotian, and Feng Xiao looked at each other. They didn't understand what Zhuowen meant. "I'm back," Zhuowen said solemnly. Mu Qinxue and the other 2 were stunned for a moment, and then they were overjoyed. After Zhuowen entered the Ruthless Pearl, his doppelganger told Mu Qinxue, Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, Crepe Myrtle Star, and Green Hat about this matter. They all knew that Zhuowen's strongest person now was his original body. His doppelganger was too weak. If his original body was still here, Zhuowen could rely on the 9 Tribulations sword formation to fight with Golden Corner God. "Did Wushang come out?" Mu Qinxue quickly asked. Zhuowen shook his head with a bitter smile and said, Wushang gave me the opportunity to leave. It's really a long story. Thus, Zhuowen briefly told Mu Qinshui and the others about what had happened in the ruthless and desireless pearl. When Mu Qinshui and the others heard this, they all sighed. They also did not expect that the final result was actually such a dramatic scene. In the end, the ruthless pearl actually tore through the air and disappeared into the chaotic starry sky. Until now, its whereabouts were completely unknown. Although I don't know where the exact location of the ruthless pearl is, I know that the place that the ruthless pearl went to must be the 100 territories beyond the realm. Zhuowen said with certainty. Long Xiaotian, Mu Qinshui, and the rest exchanged glances. Regarding the 100 territories beyond the realm, they had long heard about it from Zhuowen. Even regarding the primordial chaos path, they had long understood that the primordial chaos path was a passageway that led to the 100 territories beyond the realm, in the chaotic starry sky. Without the guidance of the primordial chaos path, it was very easy to lose one's direction and eventually die in the process of drifting in the chaotic starry sky. Right at this moment, an explosion came from the palace door. Immediately, the palace door exploded with a loud bang. A figure fell into the palace door in a sorry state. Zhuowen and the rest looked in the direction of the sound and recognized the figure. It was Green Hat. At this moment, Green Hat's mummified body had become a scene of devastation. Green blood was constantly splashing out from the wounds on his body. Green Hat struggled to get up. He looked at Zhuowen and the others who were within the barrier in the palace and said in a deep voice, "Master, why haven't you left yet?" As soon as Green Hat finished speaking, another figure was sent flying and heavily smashed into Green Hat's body. Pucci, Green Hat's expression changed slightly. He was sent flying again by the figure and landed not far from the barrier where Zhuowen and the others were. The second figure was Myrtle Star, Star Monarch. The black flames around Purple Star Sovereign were almost extinguished. There was still black blood at the corner of his mouth that had not dried up. At the same time, he was constantly coughing up blood. It seemed that his injuries were not light. "Green Hat, are you all right?" Purple Star Sovereign struggled to stand up and looked at Green Hat, who had become his cushion. He hurriedly asked with concern. "I'm not dead yet," Green Hat grimaced. His exposed ribs were all broken. It was difficult for him to even move. He could only sit and wait for his death. "You two are really tenacious." A cold voice came from outside the broken palace door. Immediately after, 3 pure ones, dressed in Taoist robes, slowly walked into the palace with a horsetail whisk in his right hand. He glanced at the heavily injured Purple Star Sovereign and Green Hat. Then his gaze fell on Zhuowen in the center of the palace, who was being supported by Mu Qinshui. "Master Zhua, it seems that your injuries are not light. Seeing you like this, I'm really worried." 3 pure one's lips curved into a smug smile. When he saw that Zhuowen was seriously injured, he sighed softly in his heart. Zhuowen gave him too much pressure. Zhuowen had left a deep impression on him when he killed Bing Hui. At that time, he almost revered Zhuowen like a god and didn't dare to disobey him. However, after the 3 battles between God Lord Golden Corner and Zhuowen, and after seeing that Zhuowen was getting worse and worse, 3 pure ones' reverence for Zhuowen gradually disappeared, especially when he saw that Zhuowen was so injured that even standing up was difficult for him. Instead, he felt a strange sense of joy in his heart. Zhuowen also had such a day. 3 pure ones, what are you trying to do by barging into my palace without my permission? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and calmly looked at 3 pure ones, who was slowly walking over. Seeing that Zhuowen didn't seem to be flustered at all, 3 pure ones was suspicious. He couldn't help but stop and size up Zhuowen with vigilance. He knew that not only was Zhuo powerful, but he was also a powerful god formation master. He wouldn't rashly approach Zhuo like this. Seeing 3 pure ones stop in time, Zhuo felt pity in his heart. As long as 3 pure ones took another step forward, he would immediately enter the absolute killing grand array set up inside the palace. Unfortunately, 3 pure ones was seriously too cautious. However, Zhuo did not show these on the surface. Ho, Lord Zhuo, the valley's current situation, I think you've seen it too, right? The valley's grand array can't hold on for much longer. I came over to suggest that, Lord Zhuo, you give the order to have the valley surrender immediately. This way, it will also reduce many meaningless sacrifices. 3 pure ones said with a fake smile. Surrender? That will depend on whether you have the ability to make me surrender or not. Zhuo said coldly, but 3 pure ones laughed loudly. He looked at Zhuo with a cold gaze and said, Zhuo, oh, Zhuo, you also have such a day. If it were before, why would you say so much to a traitor like me? You directly attack me. But you didn't. Looks like your injuries are really not light. Now you've become so timid. Zhuo looked at 3 pure ones calmly. He silently looked at 3 pure ones, who was laughing wildly without saying a word. 3 pure ones was right. His clone's origin had been injured. If he wanted to recover, he would need a lot of resources and time. Chapter 36:66. Green Hat, Crepe Myrtle, come to my side. If he dares to touch me, I will make him regret it. Zhuo called Green Hat and Crepe Myrtle Star Lord over and gave them a top-grade healing elixir for them to consume. When Sanqing saw that Zhuo had casually given out such top-grade healing elixirs, his eyes flashed with greed. He had long known that Zhuo was an extremely powerful alchemist and a powerful array master. It was said that he had a heaven-breaking divine elixir on him. He was extremely wealthy. If he could obtain the things on Zhuo Wen's body, then wouldn't he be rich? Zhuo, don't you care about your Ryuka people? Sanqing smiled. Zhuo narrowed his eyes and looked coldly at Sanqing. You dare to touch my Ryuka people? Sanqing laughed and said disdainfully, Zhuo, look at yourself now. What power do you have to resist me? You will regret it. Zhuo's voice was very calm, so calm that it was terrifying. Sanqing's smile faded as he felt a chill run down his spine. This Zhuo is but a cripple now. He's not my match at all. If not for his array, I would have taken him down immediately. Why should I be afraid of him? Sanqing thought to himself. Moreover, he had already discussed this with the Golden Corner Lord. With the Golden Corner Lord as his backer, he was even more fearless. Thinking of this, Sanqing took out his communication jade talisman and ordered the people who were capturing the Ryuka people to bring all the Ryuka people over. Not long after, the forefather of the nine-tailed fox tribe led a group of bound people into the main hall in a grandiose fashion. When Zhuo saw the group of people who were tied up, his face immediately became gloomy and his eyes were filled with rage. Sanqing really dared to touch the Ryuka people. 3 pure ones. You old bastard. How dare you attack the weak clansmen of our long clan? Zhuo and shouted angrily at 3 pure ones. Sanqing looked at Zhuo indifferently and said, Zhuo, your son really doesn't resemble you at all. You can't keep your cool. At all. You old bastard. Believe it or not, I'll beat you until you're looking for your teeth on the ground. Zhuo and was enraged. He stomped his right foot, intending to charge towards the 3 pure ones. Zhuo reacted quickly and grabbed Zhuo's right arm, stopping him in time. However, Zhuo's wound was also affected because of this. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was extremely pale. Father, are you all right? Shuijun, and reacted and hurriedly hugged the fallen Zhuowen, his face full of self-blame. Junin, you're too young. The three purities were goading you just now. Don't fall for it. Zhuowen said solemnly. Shuijun, and's face was full of shame as he whispered, Father, I'm sorry. I was too impulsive. Zhuowen patted Shuijun and looked at Sanqing's hand. He said indifferently, Sanqing, the Ryuka have treated you well, right? If you insist on surrendering, the Ryuka will not object and will naturally send you out. However, why did you attack our Ryuka tribesmen? Isn't this too much? Sanqing sneered. Zhuowen, have you not seen the truth? Not only do we want to surrender, but we also want to obtain a certain position in the Golden Universe Army's camp. That Golden Universe God Master has already told me that he invaded the galaxy to find a new home. Secondly, he came for Moyan Wushang and you, if we can hand you and Moyan Wushang over to Golden Universe God Master, it will be a great merit. Shuijun and looked angrily at Sanqing and said in a low voice, Despicable. Zhuowen calmed down and said indifferently, Since your target is me, I can agree to go with you to see Golden Universe God Master. However, you can't attack the Ryuka tribesmen. Are you serious? Sanqing's eyes lit up. Zhuowen is seriously injured, and Sanqing knows that Zhuowen is not his match. What he is afraid of now is the array formation set up by Zhuowen in the main hall. If he was not afraid of the array formation, he would have rushed in and captured Zhuowen. Now that Zhuowen had taken the initiative to go with him, he naturally could not ask for anything more. Shuijun and Mu Qinxue and the others looked at Zhuowen worriedly. They wanted to dissuade Zhuowen, but were comforted by Zhuowen. Put the Ryuka tribesmen in the main hall, and I will come out with you. Zhuowen looked at the entrance of the main hall and the group of Ryuka tribesmen, who were tied up, and said indifferently, I also want to take Moyan Wushang with me. Sanqing said, Wushang has gone missing, and I can't find her now. If you want Wushang, then our deal is over. I can't hand her over. Zhuowen shook his head. Sanqing frowned slightly and looked at Zhuowen seriously. After confirming that Zhuowen did not intend to continue negotiating with him, he had no choice but to agree at the last minute. Sanqing was now eager to perform meritorious deeds. After all, Golden Universe God Master did not give him much time. If he did not quickly deal with this matter, Golden Universe God Master's army would break into the valley. When that time came, he would not be able to perform any meritorious deeds. Although he couldn't find Moyan of Wushang, he was able to capture Zhuo when alive. That was a great contribution. Swear to the heavenly Tao before I release your tribesmen. Sanqing said worriedly. Zhuowen did not hesitate to swear the heavenly Tao oath. Then Sanqing ordered his men to release the Ryuka tribesmen. After the Ryuka tribesmen were released, they immediately entered the main hall and came to the area surrounded by the array formation. Zhuowen walked slowly to the door of the hall. His injuries were so serious that he staggered as he walked. Mu Qinxue wanted to help him, but was rejected by Zhuowen. He did not trust Sanqing's character. If Mu Qinxue followed him out, Sanqing might attack Mu Qinxue. That would be bad. When Zhuowen walked to the door of the hall, Sanqing waved the horsetail whisk in his right hand, and countless white silk threads wrapped around Zhuowen's body, drowning him. Finally, they wrapped around him and formed a cocoon. Ha! Zhuowen, you've also fallen into my hands one day. The three purities laughed loudly. In the main hall, the Ryuka tribesmen were dejected. Their eyes were filled with grief and anger, and their fists were clenched tightly. Shuijun and suppressed his anger and glared at the three pure ones. Everyone, you can only live for a few days. Cherish the few days you have left. When Golden Universe God Master's army breaks in. You are all dead. San Qing laughed and led the tribesmen out of the main hall. Outside the main hall, the Black King was still standing in the same place. He had seen everything that had happened in the main hall. When San Qing walked past him, the Black King suddenly stretched out his hand and stopped San Qing. Chapter 36:67. San Qing's face darkened. He looked at the Black King coldly and said, "Black King, I didn't blame you for not helping me capture the Ryuka, because we know each other. But now, aren't you going overboard? How dare you ask me to let Zhuowen go? Now, get out of my way. I won't blame you for your rude behavior." The Black King's gaze was resolute. He looked at the three pure ones calmly. His body, which was blocking the three pure ones, did not move an inch. "Black King, you're asking for it." San Qing was furious. His right hand formed a palm and hit the Black King's chest. The Black King did not resist and was sent flying by the palm strike. Blood spurted out, and he crashed heavily into a stone wall behind him. The Black King stood up with difficulty. His face was pale, but he still stood in front of San Qing. "San Qing, I'm begging you, let Zhuowen go this time. Maybe Zhuowen's master will arrive in time and will be saved." The Black King endured the pain, his voice carrying a hint of pleading. Lian Meng, Du Huacan, and many others who knew Zhuowen came forward and stopped San Qing. They knelt on the ground and begged for mercy for the Black King. "You guys are really something. Do you really think I won't kill you?" San Qing's eyes flashed fiercely, but he did not attack. He knew that if he killed the Black King and the others in front of everyone, it would be difficult to convince them. "Take them away and watch over them. If they can reflect on themselves, then set them free. If they don't, then keep them locked up," Zhuowen said to the nine-tailed fox elder. The nine-tailed fox elder nodded and led the foreign tribe elites to lock up the Black King, Lian Meng, and the others. "Can't you see the situation? Now that the Galaxy Traveler has lost its momentum, you're still protecting Zhuowen and the others. You're digging your own grave." San Qing looked at the Black King and the others being taken away and shook his head. He scoffed at their actions. "Zhuowen is already in my hands. You can go out and hand him over to the Divine Master." Three pure ones mumbled to himself as he walked out of the valley. Zhuowen had set up a series of arrays around the valley. The people inside the valley could leave, but the people outside the valley could not enter. They needed someone to guide them. Three pure heavens had long figured out the pattern of the valley's array, so he did not rashly leave during the few days he had been in contact with God Lord Golden Corner. Instead, he waited until he had completely captured Zhuowen before preparing to leave the valley and head to the designated location that God Lord Golden Corner had mentioned. Thousands of miles away from the valley, there was a vast plain. At this moment, on the plains, there was a black mass. It was the encampment of many troops. The number of patrolling troops in the encampment was even greater. This was the army of the Golden Corner Starry Sky. Although God Lord Golden Corner had lost most of his troops because of Zhuowen, the number of troops left behind was actually very large. In addition, God Lord Golden Corner had summoned another batch of troops in the Golden Corner galaxy over the past few years. Therefore, the size of the army that God Lord Golden Corner brought this time was not any smaller than when he had first arrived. In fact, it was even larger. Of course, to God Lord Golden Corner, the greatest loss was not the troops, but the dozens of divine protectors who had died. They were all Fifth Blight elites. How much resources and time would it take to cultivate a divine protector like that? Now, there were only 7 divine protectors left out of the original 49. At this moment, in the largest mechanical fortress, God Lord Golden Corner frowned slightly. During this period of time, he had been trying to contact Gong Ji Lu. He wanted to inform Gong Ji Lu that he was about to conquer the final area of the Xian Mi heavenly domain. However, he discovered that he was unable to contact Gong Ji Lu. This made God Lord Golden Corner feel very strange. In the past, whenever he contacted Gong Ji Lu, he would receive a reply very quickly. However, a few days had passed, and Gong Ji Lu had not replied once. Could something have happened? God Lord Golden Corner muttered in a low voice. Master Gong must have something else to do. That's why he didn't notice the message I sent him. At this moment, a mechanical soldier walked in from outside the fortress. Master God, there's a human called 3 Pure Ones outside. He wants to see you. The mechanical soldier said respectfully. God Lord Golden Corner raised his eyebrows. He thought that 3 Pure Ones was quite efficient. He had actually come to see him so quickly. It seemed that he had succeeded. Invite him in, God Lord Golden Corner said. The mechanical soldier obeyed and left the fortress. Not long after, the mechanical soldier led 3 Pure Ones into the fortress. After the mechanical soldier left, 3 Pure Ones hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed to God Lord Golden Corner. His words were full of flattery and reverence. So, you're 3 Pure Ones. I admire you. You're a person who understands the situation and knows how to size up the situation. Don't worry. With your strength, if you join my Golden Corner Starry Sky, I won't treat you badly. At this point, God Lord Golden Corner continued. Also, I'm afraid you didn't come here just to surrender, right? 3 Pure Ones smiled slightly and waved the horsetail whisk in his hand. Suddenly, the surface of the white cocoon-like sphere floating behind him began to flow continuously. Countless white threads began to squirm. Finally, from the gaps of the white threads, a wretched figure fell to the ground. Master God, this person is Zhuowen. He's also the leader of the resistance against you. I've brought this person here to present to you, Master God. 3 Pure Ones pointed at Zhuowen with a smile. God Lord Golden Corner then began to size up Zhuowen. He slowly walked toward Zhuowen and lifted Zhuowen up. I really didn't expect that a mere late-stage 5th Blight cultivator like you would be so powerful. Also, you actually have a Heavenbreaker divine artifact. Where did you get that divine artifact? God Lord Golden Corner asked curiously. Zhuowen's gaze was very calm from beginning to end. He asked in return, the divine staff on you should have been lent to you by Gong Ji Lu, right? A 3rd stage Heavenbreaker divine artifact is indeed much more powerful than a 2nd stage Heavenbreaker divine artifact. But that's it. God Lord Golden Corner was stunned and immediately looked at Zhuowen strangely. Was this guy sick in the head? He was already seriously injured by him, but he was still so arrogant. Was his brain damaged by him? If Master God's divine staff is just like this, then your divine artifact really isn't much at all. Zhuowen, you have to think about who beat you up like this. A loser should have the appearance of a loser begging for pity. Don't always act high and mighty. 3 Pure Ones mocked. Zhuowen turned his head and looked at 3 Pure Ones seriously. 3 Pure Ones felt his hair stand on end from Zhuowen's gaze and couldn't help but frown. 3 Pure Ones, you'll regret this very soon. Regret bringing me out of the valley and handing me over to God, Lord Golden Corner. Zhuowen said calmly. 3 Pure Ones was stunned and immediately laughed loudly. He said, Zhuowen, I think you're crazy. You can't even protect yourself now. What can you do to me? What do I regret? As he said, 3 Pure Ones pressed his right hand on Zhuowen's shoulder as if comforting Zhuowen. In fact, he was using power to blast into Zhuowen's body. Chapter 36:68. God Master Golden Corner had seen Sanqing's trick, but he didn't stop them. Instead, he said, "Zhuowen, tell me the whereabouts of Moyan Wushang. If you can provide me with information about Moyan Wushang, I can let you live. I can even put you in an important position. What do you think?" Sanqing's expression changed when he heard God Master Golden Corner's words. Just as he was about to speak, he saw God Master Golden Corner's sharp gaze. His heart trembled, and he didn't dare say another word. However, Sanqing was extremely anxious. Zhuowen's strength had left a deep impression on him. Now that Zhuowen was in a weakened state, he had dared to make a move. He had originally thought that God Master Golden Corner wouldn't let Zhuowen live. That was why he had agreed to capture Zhuowen alive. However, God Master Golden Corner was actually planning to give Zhuowen a chance to live. If Zhuowen was really allowed to live, there would be no place for Sanqing in the future. "Haha, I'm really sorry. I really don't know the whereabouts of Moyan Wushang." Zhuowen refused bluntly. "Very good. You have done very well. In that case, there is no need for me to keep you alive. You no longer have any value. Sanqing, I'll leave this guy to you," God Master Golden Corner said, faintly. "However, before you kill this guy, find out where he hid his divine weapon." Zhuowen's spirit ring had already been taken off by the mechanical soldier and handed to God Master Golden Corner when they had entered the fortress. God Master Golden Corner hadn't found anything valuable in Zhuowen's spirit ring, so he had guessed that the divine weapon had been hidden by Zhuowen. Only Zhuowen knew that all his precious items were basically placed in the Great World. The Great World was a world that he had created. Other people simply couldn't detect any traces of it. Even if they did, they wouldn't be able to enter the Great World. The Great World would only collapse if his original body died. However, there was a chance that the items in the Great World would fall out. "Thank you, Lord God, for your understanding." Three Pure Ones was overjoyed. He picked up Zhuowen and was about to pull Zhuowen to the side when the mechanical soldier from before rushed in. "What is it? Why are you so flustered?" God Lord Golden Corner said unhappily. The soldier trembled as he said, "Divine Lord, the base we set up in the depths of the natural moat has been destroyed." "What? Who did it?" God Lord Golden Corner angrily roared as he suddenly stood up, his face somewhat red from anger. The base in the depths of the natural moat was the most important logistical base of the Golden Corner Starry Sky. Many resources were stored there. These resources were extremely important to their army. After all, these mechanical life forms also needed energy to unleash their power, and the natural moat base was their temporary energy supply station. Now that their base had been destroyed, their battle time had been severely shortened, which was very disadvantageous for them. "I don't know either. Just now, a patrol team was planning to enter the depths of the natural moat to replenish their energy. Only then did they realize that their base had been destroyed. It's said that it has been destroyed for several days." The mechanical soldier said, "The base has been destroyed, and we can't contact Master Gong." God Lord Golden Corner quickly calmed down and immediately contacted Gong Kilyu and the base. Gong Kilyu was in the chaotic cosmos outside the base. If someone destroyed the base, Gong Kilyu would definitely not stand idly by. However, the base had been destroyed, and Gong Kilyu could not be contacted. This gave God Lord Golden Corner a bad premonition. Boom, boom, boom. Just as God Lord Golden Corner was deep in thought, violent tremors came from the entire fortress. Outside the fortress, terrifying sounds of explosions could be heard. It was as if countless bombs had been detonated in the surroundings. "Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Someone is attacking our base." Outside the fortress, another mechanical soldier hurriedly ran in to inform God Lord Golden Corner. God Lord Golden Corner kicked the mechanical soldier away and said with a gloomy face, "You don't have to say it. I can tell. I want to see just who dares to attack this lord's fortress." God Lord Golden Corner quickly walked out of the fortress. 3 pure one's eyes flickered as he carried Zhuowen and followed closely behind. He was also very curious as to which blind fellow would actually attack the Golden Corner army at this critical juncture. Was this not seeking one's own death? In the sky above the huge fortress base, a divine ship was high up in the sky. Dozens of black cannon muzzles appeared on both sides of the divine ship. Zhuowen's main body stood on the deck and looked down at the mechanical fortress below. The dozens of cannon muzzles on both sides of the divine ship were currently firing intense energy cannons. These energy cannons fell like rain and landed on the mechanical fortress, causing terrifying explosions. Gong Qilyu's divine ship is not bad. It even has such powerful cannons. Zhuowen stood on the deck and looked down at the mechanical army that was constantly fleeing below. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. During the period when he returned from Heaven's Moat, he had already begun to refine this divine ship. Zhuowen had just discovered these cannons on the divine ship, and they were the only offensive equipment on the divine ship. Although it was a little monotonous, its power was extremely terrifying. The power of each energy cannon was close to a heaven-breaking, rank 1 divine artifact. However, these cannons consumed chaos crystals. Each shot required 1 chaos crystal. Zhuowen's crazy bombardment consumed a lot of energy. Even he felt heartache. However, the effect obtained was astonishing. The Golden Corner army below was almost completely routed, and their base was already in ruins in just a few breaths of time. The army suffered heavy casualties. "Who is it? Dare to sneak attack our Golden Corner army? Are you tired of living?" A loud shout came over. A figure rushed out of the smoke and dust, bringing 6 figures with him, and quickly rushed toward the divine ship. These 7 figures all had powerful auras and were extremely fast. While avoiding the energy cannons, they quickly approached the divine ship. Zhuowen also noticed these 7 figures and also recognized that these 7 figures were the remaining 7 divine protectors of the Golden Corner army. Although the cannons were powerful, their flexibility was too poor. These 7 divine protectors' cultivation were all 5th Blight realm. Furthermore, their speed was extremely fast. Dodging the cannons was more than enough. When the first divine protector arrived on the divine ship's deck, he still had a hideous smile on his face. But his hideous smile was quickly replaced by fear, only to see an ethereal purple blade flash out, aiming straight for the space between his eyebrows. The purple blade was too fast, arriving in a flash, slashing through the space between his eyebrows. Then his head exploded. A divine soul rapidly spilled out, fleeing into the distance. "Those who come are guests. Since you're already here, then stay. Don't be in a hurry to leave." Zhuowen's cold voice came over. He cast his divine ability, Primordial Life Annihilation. A purple river surged out, sweeping up that divine soul and annihilating it. The instant Zhuowen instantly killed a divine protector. He also moved at the same time. Taking a step out, he rushed out of the divine ship and faced the remaining 6 divine protectors. And around him, ethereal purple blades began to appear one after another, spinning continuously. At the same time, Zhuowen released 6 floating blades, killing 1 person with each blade. Puchi, Puchi. Zhuowen's speed was extremely fast, turning into an afterimage in midair, passing by those 6 divine protectors. Chapter 36:69. When Zhuowen killed the 7 divine protectors in an instant like he was cutting vegetables, many soldiers around the panicked Golden Corner army saw it clearly. The 7 divine protectors have been killed. A ruthless person has arrived. Everyone, be careful. Where's the Lord God? As long as the Lord God is here, this person will die no matter how strong he is. The army, which had been panicking inside the energy cannons, became even more panicked when they saw the 7 divine protectors being killed in an instant. The encampment on the vast plains was in complete disarray. The sound of cannonballs exploding, shrill screams, and chaotic footsteps intertwined together. It was like an extremely chaotic sound that was rather ear-piercing. At that moment, God Lord Golden Corner had already left the fortress, and 3 pure ones followed closely behind with Zhuowen's clone. When the 2 of them saw the miserable state of the camp, their pupils constricted involuntarily. That is, Lord Gong's divine ship. How is that possible? God Lord Golden Corner quickly noticed the source of the energy cannons in the sky. He immediately saw the divine ship floating in the air above the camp. He was all too familiar with this divine ship. It was the divine ship that Gong Ji Lu and NIC were on. At the same time, he saw an unfamiliar youth on the deck of the divine ship. This youth had a long and narrow face, a pair of beautiful red phoenix eyes, and a cold smile on his lips. This handsome youth was naturally Zhuowen. Of course, this was not Zhuowen's original appearance, but he had changed his appearance. God Lord Golden Corner and 3 pure ones immediately saw that Zhuowen had changed his appearance. However, because Zhuowen's disguise technique was extremely brilliant, the 2 of them could only see that this person had changed his appearance, but could not see his true appearance. Boom, boom, boom. Just as God Lord Golden Corner was in a daze, several energy cannons had already aimed at him and instantly enveloped them. A terrifying explosion of light suddenly exploded, and God Lord Golden Corner and 3 pure ones were drowned in it. 3 pure ones panicked. He could feel the terrifying power of these energy cannons. With his strength, he would probably be seriously injured if he took one hit. It was also at this moment that he loosened his grip on Zhuowen's clone. Zhuowen's doppelganger immediately seized the opportunity and used the last of his strength to punch 3 pure ones. The 3 purities were completely focused on the energy cannons in the sky and did not guard against Zhuowen's doppelganger at all. As a result, he was hit squarely in the chest. Puchi! 3 pure ones spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. His grip on Zhuowen loosened. Bang! Zhuowen's clone fell to the ground, and with a muffled groan, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. That strike just now was the last of his strength. After using that attack, he didn't even have the strength to stand up. At this moment, the energy cannons had already hit them head-on. Countless explosions and lights flashed before their eyes and ears. God Lord Golden Corner solemnly took out the Snake Shadow Divine Staff and raised it above his head. The explosive energy caused by the energy cannons was blocked more than 10 meters away from him. It was as if a powerful barrier had formed around the Golden Corner Divine Lord within a dozen meters. Cough, cough, cough. 3 pure ones struggled to stand up. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Zhuowen, who was not far away. He and Zhuowen were very lucky. They happened to be in the area protected by God Lord Golden Corner, so they were not affected by the energy cannons. Little bastard, I didn't expect you to still have the strength to sneak an attack on me at this critical juncture. However, your actions are extremely unwise because you have angered me, and the price for angering me is that you will die now. 3 pure ones growled and charged towards Zhuowen. He lashed out with his horsetail whisk, which turned into countless sharp needles, all aimed at Zhuowen's vitals. Zhuowen's doppelganger lay on the ground and raised his head with difficulty to look at 3 pure ones. A mocking smile appeared on his lips. 3 pure ones, the one who is going to die is not me, but you. Three Pure Ones was stunned. Just as he was about to mock Zhuowen for spouting nonsense, he saw that the white strands of his horsetail whisk that were aimed at Zhuowen were crumbling inch by inch, and the speed of the crumbling was extremely fast. In an instant, it spread toward him. Bam! The horsetail whisk exploded completely. A terrifying energy coiled around Three Pure One's arm like maggots. Instantly, his right arm exploded. A strong sense of danger rose in Three Pure One's heart. He also felt an intense fear of death that he had never felt before. It was so intense that he could not move his legs at all. It was as if they had taken root, and he stood motionless on the spot. "Watch out!" Suddenly, God Lord Golden Corner roared. With the snake shadow staff in his hand, he had already arrived in front of Three Pure Ones. Bam! A purple saber suddenly landed on the snake shadow staff, creating countless sparks. Countless black snake shadows appeared on the surface of the snake shadow staff and instantly devoured the purple saber radiance. Good reaction. An indifferent voice came from nearby, dozens of meters in the air in front of Three Pure Ones and God Lord Golden Corner. The evil youth slowly walked down from the air as if he was stepping on empty stairs. Thud! The evil youth landed beside Zhuowen's doppelganger and helped Zhuowen's doppelganger up. "I never thought that you would be gone for so many years. All these years, I even lost contact with you. If I didn't have that innate connection with you, I would have thought that you had died." Zhuowen's doppelganger slowly stood up. He looked at the evil youth and could not help but smile. His smile was relaxed and comfortable. "This is my miscalculation, but I'm finally back. The great world is still with you," Zhuowen's original body said in a low voice. Zhuowen's doppelganger nodded. With a flick of his finger, an indiscernible black dot landed in his original body's hand. Zhuowen kept his doppelganger in the great world. He had lost contact with his doppelganger for many years, and he realized that his doppelganger and his original body no longer had the same tacit understanding as before. Moreover, the memories of the two had also become different. After all, the lives the two had experienced in these 10-odd years were completely different. Therefore, there was some disharmony when they reunited now. However, Zhuowen knew that after he fused the two different memories, the disharmony between the two would be completely repaired very quickly. "You, who the hell are you?" God Lord Golden Corner looked gravely at the evil youth before him. Although the aura of the evil youth before him seemed to be only at the early stage of the fifth blight on the surface, it gave him an extremely strong sense of danger. This feeling was somewhat similar to the oppressive feeling that Gong Chi Lu gave him back then. In other words, this evil youth before him was definitely a heaven-breaking realm powerhouse. And a heaven-breaking realm powerhouse whose cultivation was not suppressed by this starry sky. God Lord Golden Corner suddenly thought of something and asked in return, "You are the only heaven-breaking realm powerhouse in this starry sky. That Zhuowen's master?" Zhuowen was stunned. He originally wanted to reveal his identity, but God Lord Golden Corner was too good at imagining things and immediately connected it to the so-called master that his doppelganger had made up. Chapter 3670. This seat has only been in seclusion for a few years, and such a huge change has occurred while roaming the starry sky. Also, what are you, trash? You are neither human nor ghost, yet you dare to attack the seat's starry sky? Are you tired of living? Zhuowen said in an extremely pretentious manner. The Three Pure Ones almost fainted from fright. He didn't think that Zhuowen really had a master. Moreover, this master seemed to be extremely powerful. God Lord Golden Corner's heart sank. He looked at the divine ship in the sky and had some bad thoughts. His mind was actually somewhat flustered. Where did you get this divine ship? God Lord Golden Corner suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and asked, "Oh, I snatched this divine ship. I just came back from seclusion outside and saw two people sneakily hiding in this divine ship and spying on the space. I knew that those two people weren't good people with one look, so I killed them. Speaking of which, this divine ship is still my spoils of war." Zhuowen said casually. Gong Ji Lu and NIC were both heaven-breaking second transformation elites, and they even had powerful trump cards on them. Even if Zhuowen's divine sense had metamorphosed to heaven-breaking stage 3, his cultivation was too low. He really wasn't a match for these two people. At most, he could barely deal with one of them. If it weren't for the heartless and desireless Pearl creating an opportunity for him, he simply couldn't have killed Gong Ji Lu and NIC. What? Lord Gong and Lord and I have died. God Lord Golden Corner's hands trembled. Although he had already thought of this possibility when he couldn't contact Gong Ji Lu, it was just a guess. Now that his guess was confirmed, his mind was in a mess, and he finally started to feel fear. This person even killed Gong Ji Lu and NIC. Would he be a match for him? No. The reason why Lord Gong was defeated by this person must be because he gave this snake shadow divine staff to me, so his strength fell greatly. That's why this person took advantage of the loophole. The snake shadow divine staff is a heaven-breaking stage 3 divine tool. Its power is unparalleled. No matter how strong this person is, how can he be stronger than the snake shadow divine staff? Moreover, after Lord Gong died, this snake shadow divine staff already has no owner. Won't it be mine in the future? Thinking of this, God Lord Golden Corner was no longer afraid. 3 pure ones also came back to his senses. He glanced at the snake shadow divine staff in God Lord Golden Corner's hand and calmed down. He knew that the snake shadow divine staff in Divine Lord Golden Corner's hands was a heaven-breaking Tier 3 divine artifact. Its power was extremely terrifying. He thought to himself, no matter how strong that Zhuowen's master was, could it be that he could still rival a heaven-breaking rank 3 divine artifact? Humph! Whether it's Zhuowen or Zhuowen's master, none of them are a match for the divine master. They've only come here to die. The 3 purities were full of confidence in God, Lord Golden Corner. The gaze he used to look at Zhuowen was like looking at a dead man. "Tell me your name." "I, God Lord Golden Corner. Do not kill nameless people." God Lord Golden Corner calmed down and said coldly, "Unfortunately, I also have a habit, and that is I never give names to people who are about to die." Zhuowen said indifferently. God Lord Golden Corner's face darkened. He snorted and said, "Since that's the case, I'll make an exception and kill a nameless person today." Whoosh! As he said that, God Lord Golden Corner took a step forward and instantly swept in front of Zhuowen. The snake shadow divine staff in his hand exploded with a terrifying light. Zhuowen was not afraid at all. He tapped the sword finger of his right hand on his forehead and unleashed a divine soul sword intent that slashed fiercely at God Lord Golden Corner. Bam, bam, bam. Immediately, endless green lotus fire accompanied by a terrifying sword light swept away all the attacks of the snake shadow divine staff. What kind of power is this? How can it be so powerful? God Lord Golden Corner grunted and could not help but retreat, his eyes revealing shock. The divine soul sword intent unleashed by Zhuowen turned into afterimages in the air and constantly slashed at God Lord Golden Corner. And the attacks that God Lord Golden Corner mustered with energy and used the snake shadow divine staff as a medium were all shattered by this divine soul sword intent. Bam, bam, bam. God Lord Golden Corner leaped into the air, the countless snake shadows on the surface of the snake shadow divine staff suddenly expanding. Several thousand snake shadows appeared and covered God Lord Golden Corner's body. Zhuowen held his hands behind his back as he quietly looked up at God Lord Golden Corner, who was surrounded by countless snake shadows. Interesting. This snake shadow divine staff truly lives up to its reputation as a rank 3 heaven-piercing divine artifact. Its power is truly extraordinary. Unfortunately, God Lord Golden Corner, you are too weak. You can't even use 1% of the Snake Shadow Divine Staff's power. Zhuowen shook his head. He pointed the finger of his right hand at the air, and the soul-based sword intent in the air changed direction. It tore through the air with a whoosh, and green lotus flames spread everywhere it passed, turning into a sea of green flames that filled the air. This sea of green lotus fire was so massive that it seemed to dye the entire sky blue. Bam, bam, bam. The divine soul sword intent was extremely fast, shuttling through the several thousand snake shadows. With each shuttling, the divine soul sword intent annihilated a snake shadow. In less than 10 breaths of time, the divine soul sword intent had shuttled through thousands of times. Because it was too fast, it seemed to have left behind numerous sword shadows in the air. The divine soul sword intent returned to Zhuowen's side and hovered above his shoulder blade. Then, Zhuowen looked indifferently at God Lord Golden Corner in the air. Is this all you've got? Isn't it too weak? To think that you even have a rank 3 heaven-piercing divine artifact. Too weak, ridiculously weak. Zhuowen shook his head. He had been tempered by the desireless pearl all these years and experienced the baptism of countless illusions. His divine soul had been tempered thousands of times and had become even stronger. Not only had he consolidated the divine soul power that had just broken through to the heaven-piercing third transformation, but his divine soul had also improved further, most likely reaching the mid-stage of the heaven-piercing third transformation. His divine soul had transformed again, and the power of the divine soul sword intent released had increased by several times. In the past, the divine soul sword intent he had left in his clone could barely block God Lord Golden Corner. But now, the divine soul sword intent could easily suppress the snake shadow divine staff and kill God Lord Golden Corner. How is this possible? God Lord Golden Corner was stunned as he looked at the huge wound on his chest. Just now, after the divine soul sword intent had destroyed the last snake shadow, it had pierced through his chest. At this moment, the wound on his chest was still burning with a green lotus flame, and the scorching aura was even more overwhelming. You? Sure enough? Lord Gong, and the others were really killed by you. Me? I regret it. God Lord Golden Corner roared at the sky, his eyes filled with regret. When he saw the divine ship, he already knew that the young man in front of him was definitely not ordinary. However, he was still hoping for a fluke. Wasn't fighting with such an expert seeking his own death? God Lord Golden Corner's train of thought was quickly interrupted because the green lotus flame in his chest had suddenly spread and ignited his entire body. He screamed miserably in the green lotus flame as his body gradually turned into ashes. No, Lord, I was wrong. I surrender. I surrender. Please don't kill me. I can be your slave as long as you let me go. God Lord Golden Corner screamed miserably in the air, begging for mercy. In the end, before he could finish his words, he was burned to ashes by the green lotus flame. Chapter 3671. Zhuowen picked up the snake shadow divine staff. He could sense the profound and powerful aura coming from the surface of the snake shadow divine staff, but his heart remained calm. The snake shadow divine staff was indeed very powerful, and it was also a level 3 heaven-breaking divine weapon. However, Zhuowen was not good at this type of divine weapon. Speaking of which, the 9 Tribulations sword formation that he had obtained was also not his best weapon. However, he only had a few heaven-breaking divine weapons, so he had always made do with them. How great would it be if I could get a heaven-breaking divine spear? Zhuowen was a little emotional. He had always used spears in his early years. To him, spear-type weapons were the most suitable weapons. However, he had never found a suitable spear weapon until now. Moreover, he was not an equipment refiner, so he had never thought of creating a divine weapon that belonged to him. Create a divine weapon that belongs to me? Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He had 3 heaven-breaking divine weapons, which were the 9 tribulations sword formation, the snake shadow divine staff, and NIC's divine bow. If he could reforge these 3 divine weapons, wouldn't it be enough to forge a divine spear? If he used a divine spear, his attacks would definitely be much stronger. Although Zhuowen didn't know anything about refining artifacts, with his current reputation, he could summon a group of the best artifact refiners in the universe and forge a divine artifact together. This was something he could do. Not far away, when Sanqing saw the Golden Corner Divine, Lord being burned to ashes by the Green Lotus fire, his eyes were filled with extreme fear. His body trembled violently. Even the Golden Corner Divine, Lord, was defeated. How can he be so strong? How can this guy be so strong? Sanqing's mind was in a mess. Then he realized that Zhuowen had stopped in his tracks and was looking down at the snake's shadow divine staff as if in a daze. This is a good chance to escape. Sanqing was overjoyed. He immediately took out his flying divine weapon and fled in a panic. However, just as Sanqing leaped onto the flying divine weapon, a sword light pierced through the air and slashed at the flying divine weapon. Bam! The flying divine artifact instantly exploded, and 3 pure ones fell to the ground, covered in dust. He only felt pain in his legs. Then he realized that he had lost all feeling in his legs. Only then did he realize that his legs had been chopped off at some point in time. Blood splattered everywhere. Did I say you could leave? The 3 pure ones finally noticed that Zhuowen, who had been staring at the snake's shadow divine staff in a daze, was now looking at him with a cold gaze as he slowly walked over. "My lord, this has nothing to do with me. It was God Lord Golden Corner who forced me to do so." The 3 pure ones were still terrified, but they forced themselves to calm down and shift the blame. "Oh, if someone forces you to do it, you will do it? If I force you to commit suicide now, are you going to commit suicide in front of me?" Zhuowen mocked. "Sir, I'm also a member of the coiling starry sky. You can't kill me. If you kill me, you will disappoint the coiling starry sky." 3 pure ones made a final struggle and continued. "And you have no reason to kill me. We have no enmity between us. Killing me is unnecessary." Zhuowen stopped and looked down at 3 pure ones calmly. "Do you really think that we have no enmity between us?" 3 pure ones hurriedly said, "Yes, we have never met. Although you said that you are Zhuowen's master, I think we should settle the enmity between me and Zhuowen ourselves. If we let my master settle it, it would make Zhuowen look like a bully." Zhuowen smiled and completely removed the disguise on his face. His originally evil face completely changed into Zhuowen's original appearance. "Now, do you still think that we have no enmity between us?" Zhuowen said with a faint smile. When 3 pure ones saw Zhuowen's face, his eyes widened, and he said in disbelief, You're Zhuowen? That's impossible. You were in my hands, and you were severely injured. How could you be?" "Sir, you must be joking. In order to let you know before you die, I'll tell you the truth. All these years, the Zhuowen in the Ryuka Valley was only my doppelganger. The real Zhuowen has only returned recently." Zhuowen said calmly. 3 pure ones fell to the ground powerlessly. His mouth was full of bitterness as he looked at Zhuowen with a complicated expression. "I didn't expect you to grow so quickly. When I was the master of the sky region, you were just an ant on the heavenly armor planet. Now, You are the strongest person under the coiling starry sky, and I am just an ant to you. It's really hard to predict the future." Three Pure Ones suddenly laughed. However, his laughter did not last for long before it came to an abrupt end. Zhuowen silently looked at Three Pure Ones, who was lying on the ground with dim eyes. Did he kill himself? Zhuowen squatted down and checked the state of Three Pure One's soul between his eyebrows. He found that his soul had already collapsed. At that moment, Three Pure Ones had destroyed his own soul and died in front of Zhuowen. Zhuowen stood up and looked at Three Pure Ones with a complicated expression. Although he now knew that Three Pure Ones had been using him all along. They were master and disciple after all, and Three Pure Ones had helped him many times. However, their standpoints were already different, and it was only a matter of time before they stood on opposite sides. Even if Three Pure Ones did not surrender to the Golden Corner God, Zhuowen would kill Three Pure Ones in the future. This was because he saw great ambition in Three Pure Ones' eyes. This kind of person would not like to live under someone else's roof and be suppressed by others. One day, the Three Pure Ones would definitely make a move against the Long family and fight with him. That day would be when Three Pure Ones would destroy the heavens. However, the arrival of the Golden Corner army had completely disrupted the rhythm, causing Three Pure Ones to make a decision in advance. Zhuowen casually dug a deep hole in the ground and buried Three Pure Ones in the hole. Then, he erected a jade tombstone in front of the grave. However, there were no inscriptions on the jade tombstone. Everything was blank. After doing this, Zhuowen found that the Golden Corner army's encampment had been completely turned into ruins. More than 90% of the Golden Corner army had been annihilated by the energy cannon. The rest of the Golden Corner army was either dead or injured. There was not much left of its military strength. Now, these remaining soldiers were fleeing toward the natural moat, trying to escape from this starry sky. Zhuowen did not care about these remaining soldiers. The Golden Corner God and 49 divine protectors had all died in his hands, and the army had lost more than 90% of its forces. The remaining defeated soldiers were not a threat at all. Zhuowen's divine telekinesis instantly scanned every corner of the encampment, but he frowned. There's no aura of that great divine master? Could it be that the great divine master was killed by the energy cannon? Zhuowen suddenly thought of the great divine master. He had long known that the great divine master was the one who had set up the large-scale teleportation formation that transported the army. Chapter 3672. Zhuowen scanned the encampment with his divine telekinesis, but he did not find any trace of the great divine master, not even his corpse. Oh no, this old man must have slipped away early. Zhuowen discovered a temporary teleportation array in a pile of rubble. However, the teleportation array had been destroyed, and he knew that it must have been set up by the great divine master. To Heaven's Moat. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy, and he did not stay there any longer. He went straight to Heaven's Moat. While Zhuowen was causing havoc in the Jinyu army, the cultivators in the Ryuka Valley, who had been paying attention to the Jinyu army, were stunned and petrified. Master's original body is back. What a powerful aura. We are saved this time. In the main hall of Ryuka, Green Hat, who had been recuperating, suddenly opened his eyes and exclaimed excitedly, "What? Brother Zhuo's original body is back." Crepe Myrtle Star, who was sitting not far away, also came back to his senses. He was stunned at first, but then he became excited. "Mother, Father's original body is back. You have always talked about how strong Father's original body is, but is it really a match for the Jinyu Divine Master?" Zhuojun was puzzled. When he was very young, Zhuowen's original body had left Ryuka, and no one knew where it had gone. although Zhuojun, and had often heard others say that Zhuowen's strongest body was his human original body. He had never seen it before. But he had never seen it before, and the impact that Divine Lord Golden Corner gave him was too great. Therefore, he had some doubts. Could Zhuo Wen's original body really be a match for Divine Lord Golden Corner? All these years, the ones who have been with us are only Master's doppelgangers. The doppelganger's strength is only 1% of the original body's strength. Little Master, do you think Master's original body is powerful? This time, the Jinyu Divine Master and the three Pure Ones are in trouble with Master's original body strength. He can definitely suppress the two of them. Now it's time for us to make a move. Green Hat grinned. Ever since he had been beaten to a pulp by the three Pure Ones, he had been holding back a lot of anger, and now he could finally vent it. Brother Green Hat, your injuries haven't healed yet, right? It's not very appropriate to go out now, Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign said with a frown. Brother Ziwei, you're much stronger than I am now. Are you still so fearful in your actions? In the Ryuka Valley, other than the three Pure Ones, no one is our match. Even if I'm injured, those three foreign patriarchs won't be a match for me. Green Hat laughed heartily. Ziwei Star Monarch was stunned. Then he shook his head and laughed. You're right, I'm too conservative. Let's go, I'll go with you. Let's have a good time. In the valley. Those old followers of the three Pure Ones actually dared to attack Ryuka. It's time to teach them a lesson. With that said, Green Hat and Crepe Myrtle Star walked out of the main hall side by side. Mother, grandfather, grandmother, let's go out and take a look. I really want to see how strong Father's original body is. Zhuojun and said excitedly. Mu Qinshue's beautiful eyes were a little stern. Now was a critical time. She couldn't let anything happen to June and Qinshue. Let's go out. Didn't you receive Er's message as well? He said that there's no need to fear the Jinyu army, so there's definitely no problem. He has never let us down once. Feng Xiao suddenly opened her mouth. Mu Qinshuo was stunned. Then she said with a bitter smile, Granny is right. I was too worried. I believe in husband. Let's follow behind Green Hat and Crepe Myrtle. When Green Hat and Ziwei Star Monarch walked out of the main hall, they decisively made their move. Those who surrendered were mercilessly killed by the two of them. After that, the two of them fought the three foreign patriarchs. In front of everyone's eyes, they killed the three patriarchs and rescued the trapped Ryuka people. As for the rest of the surrendered troops, their morale fell into chaos. They gave up resisting and were imprisoned by the Ryuka people. The Black King, Lian Meng, Du Huaken, and the other humans who had a good relationship with Zhuowen were also released along with the Ryuka people. What happened? Where's the three patriarchs? After the Black King was released, he immediately asked Green Hat, The three patriarchs brought my master and went to the Jinyu army's camp alone. Green Hat lightly said, What? He actually dares to do this? No, we have to save little brother, Zhua. Otherwise, she'll really die. The Black King anxiously said. Green Hat laughed and pulled the Black King back. He pointed into the distance and said, You'll know if you look at the Jinyu army. They don't need our help at all. The Black King was stunned. He looked in the direction Green Hat was pointing and was surprised to find that there was a terrifying explosion in the Jinyu army's camp. Countless energy cannons fell from the sky and exploded in the Jinyu army's camp, causing waves of terrifying explosion energy. He could even see the scene of many Golden Corner soldiers being blown to smithereens, and the entire military camp was in a mess, with people fleeing and hiding. But most people couldn't hide at all. The range of the explosion was too large, and it filled the entire camp. Under such an explosion, the entire camp became hell on earth. Large numbers of Jinyu soldiers were annihilated in the explosion. What? Who did this? So powerful. The Black King was stunned, and his scalp went numb. Even from so far away, he could feel how terrifying the power of the explosion was. If he was in that purgatory, he probably wouldn't be able to hold on for more than 10 breaths of time before his soul dissipated. Wow, is this the work of Father? So powerful. Just one person taking action. And he got rid of such a powerful Jinyu army? Shuijun, and had already come out. He climbed up the cliff at the edge of the valley and looked at the explosion in the distance. His face was flushed with excitement. It seems to be the Jinyu Divine Lord. That Jinyu Divine Lord was wrapped in a green flame and seems to have been burned away. Shuijun's eyesight was very strong. He saw the Jinyu Divine Lord wrapped in green lotus flames in the sky above the explosion. At Shuijun's reminder, everyone in the valley also noticed the Jinyu Divine Lord in the sky in the distance. They saw with their own eyes that the Jinyu Divine Lord was burned to ashes by the green lotus flames. That's Father's soul sword intent. This green flame is too familiar, but it's much stronger than the soul sword intent that Father released in the past. Shuijun muttered to himself, "Yes, that's the strength of Master's original body. So what if the Jinyu Divine Lord has a heaven-breaking Level 3 divine artifact? He's no match for Master." Green had said enthusiastically. Chapter 3673. In the depths of Heaven's Moat, the base of the mechanical life forms had long been reduced to ruins. All the mechanical life forms in the base had perished, and the place was in ruins. A white light shone from the ruins, and then a human figure gradually became clear in the white light. It was a black-robed metallic life form, and it was the Master God of Golden Galaxy. At this moment, the Master God's face was extremely ugly, and his eyes were filled with fear. "Are you kidding me?" The God, Master, died, just like that? How is this possible? How strong is that guy? The Master God was a little dazed as he mumbled to himself, but his body was trembling. He had watched the entire battle between the God Master of Golden Galaxy and Zhuoan. Rather than calling it a battle, it was actually a one-sided abuse. The God Master of Golden Galaxy, who had the Snake Shadow Staff, could not resist at all. It was too unbelievable. "No, it's too dangerous here. I have to run." The Master God came back to his senses and rushed out of Heaven's Moat, entering the chaotic stars outside. After leaving Heaven's Moat, the Master God took out his flying divine artifact and flew toward the group of meteorites where the teleportation formation was set up in advance. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. The God Master has perished, and Lord Gong and Lord and I seem to have perished too. What should I do next? Golden Galaxy is almost at its limit. The Master God smiled bitterly. He knew that this invasion was a complete failure. Golden Galaxy was completely defeated. He was also a little lost, and he did not know what to do next. He estimated that Golden Galaxy would not last for 1,000 years. After 1,000 years, Golden Galaxy would be at the end of its road. Damn it, why did it become like this? We planned this for so many years, and the plan was flawless. The Master God slammed his fist on the deck and roared unwillingly. No, there's still hope. Suddenly, the Master God calmed down and took out a palm-sized statue from his spirit ring. This statue had a human face and a snake body, and it was similar to Gong Ji-Lu and NIC. Lady and I gave this to me. She said that this is the communicator that the Nuwa clan uses to communicate with each other. We used this communicator to contact Lady and I and Lord Gong. Furthermore, Lord and I had also said that this communication device could also send out a distress signal from the clan. As long as there are clansmen nearby, they will quickly rush over. The great god master held the statue in his hand, and his eyes were filled with determination. NIC had told him that there was a limit to the range of the signal that the statue could send out, and the probability of there being a clansman in this limited range was very small. Gongji Lu and NIC had never paid much attention to this function of the communicator because they knew that although the clan members seemed to be very well off on the surface, the internal competition was very intense. If they were in a life or death crisis, even if they used this function to summon their people, it would have the opposite effect. Therefore, they never thought of using this function on the communicator. However, the great god master naturally didn't know about the relationships between the clan disciples. Now, he was completely filled with anger and unwillingness. He knew that the Golden Corner Starry Sky was finished, but he was unwilling to accept it. Even if the Golden Corner Starry Sky was going to be destroyed, he didn't want the Wanderer's Starry Sky to have an easy time, especially the evil youth who killed the Golden Corner Divine Lord. He had a premonition that the youth would notice that he had left and would probably chase after him. If he was lucky, he could really summon the other clansmen of the Niwa clan. Even if he couldn't deal with the entire Wanderer's Starry Sky, killing the evil youth would be enough to vent his anger. Bang! At this moment, the flying divine artifact that the great god master was sitting on suddenly exploded. The entire flying divine artifact shook violently, and countless cracks appeared on its surface. The great god master's expression changed drastically. He immediately looked behind him and saw that at the edge of the heavenly moat, a figure was rapidly chasing after him. Fierce attacks were launched from this person's hands and landed on the flying divine artifact. The figure chasing after him was Zhuowen. Damn it, how is this guy so fast? The great god master's expression changed drastically. His gaze became even more determined, and then he injected energy into the statue in his hand. The originally dim statue was now bursting with a strange purple light. Then, the great god master's sharp senses discovered that a strange ripple swept out in all directions like radiation. It was so fast that he couldn't react in time. What's with this ripple? Zhuo, who was originally chasing from behind, also felt that fleeting fluctuation and was extremely shocked in his heart. However, Zhuo didn't think too much about it. He didn't intend to let the great god master go. After all, this guy was one of the main forces in the invasion of the Wanderer's Starry Sky. How could he let such a guy go so easily? The invisible ripple was too fast. In just a breath, it had spread to most of the primordial tree. However, it was very difficult for the beings of the lower realms in these areas to sense the ripple unless they were top-notch powerhouses with very sensitive divine senses. Of course, they could only sense the ripple, but they didn't know what it meant or where it was coming from. On a huge branch near the top of the primordial tree, a figure stood quietly. Upon closer inspection, this figure had the face of a middle-aged man, but his lower body was that of a snake. However, this person wasn't afraid of the primordial tree's terrifying aura. He stood calmly on the branch and looked around as if he was looking for something. This is so troublesome. Why did you leave the tracking to me? I've chased him from the 100 territories to the primordial tree. I've unknowingly chased him for so long. That guy's ability to escape is really strong. He's only at the heaven-crushing 7 transformation, but he's actually faster than me. That's really impressive. However, this is as far as I can go. The 100 territories have already been sealed off. This guy can't go back to the 100 territories. I've also set up corresponding informants in most areas of the primordial tree. As long as that guy appears on the informants, I'll immediately discover him. The only place I haven't checked should be the area at the bottom of the primordial tree. I'll find you soon. You made me run so far. I'll definitely torture you before killing you. Hee hee. A cruel smile appeared on the middle-aged man's face as his gaze fell on the area at the bottom of the primordial tree. Huh, this ripple? Isn't this the clan's communication device's distress signal? Looks like one of our clansmen is in danger. The middle-aged man was startled at first, but then he shrugged. He didn't want to pay attention to this distress signal. In the past, when he was out on missions, he often encountered this kind of situation. Although they were from the same clan, that was all. He never paid attention to this kind of distress signal. To him, saving people was a waste of time. In his opinion, sending out distress signals was the behavior of weaklings. He was even less interested in weaklings. Chapter 3674. Let's go and take a look. Maybe it's that guy who attacked my clansmen. After all, that guy hates our Nuwa clan very much. If there are any clansmen here, I'm afraid he won't be able to hold himself back and attack us. As he spoke, the middle-aged man grinned and gradually disappeared. Bang! The flying divine artifact completely exploded. The grand god master groaned and flew backward, smashing into the surface of a meteorite. However, the grand god master reacted quickly. The moment he fell to the ground, he immediately took out array flags from his spiritual ring and threw them around him, forming a powerful defensive array. He had already set up this array long ago. Now, he was just using it. Crack! However, what made the grand god master despair was that the array collapsed just as it was set up. Grand god master, don't waste your time. My array skills are higher than yours. The array you set up has no effect on me at all. An indifferent voice sounded. Zhuowen, who was disguised as an evil youth, slowly walked out. The grand god master showed a look of despair. He knew that he could not escape death today. As for the distress signal he had sent out, it had been a while, but no one had come. Obviously, there were no clansmen of the Nuwa clan within the range of the signal. What will it take for you to let me go? The grand god master suddenly asked. Zhuowen shook his head and said, You are one of the masterminds who plan to invade the Pan-Yu galaxy. You are too dangerous. You may launch another invasion in the future. Therefore, I can spare others' lives if they surrender, but not you. As he spoke, Zhuowen lifted the grand god master up with one hand. His left hand formed a sword and pointed at the grand god master's forehead. The gap between the grand god master and Zhuowen was too big. In the hands of Zhuowen, the grand god master could not do anything. Suddenly, a strong sense of danger rose in Zhuowen's mind. He immediately shook off the grand god master and quickly retreated. Puchi, a blade light appeared at the place where Zhuowen was and cut off Zhuowen's right arm. Zhuowen landed on the edge of the meteorite. After stopping the bleeding from the wound on his right arm, he looked at the starry sky behind the great priest with fear in his eyes. The blade light from earlier had suddenly appeared in the starry sky. Furthermore, it had struck towards the center of his brows from an extremely tricky angle. If he hadn't reacted fast enough, that blade light would have split his head open. Who is it? Zhuowen bellowed. Aya, you're just an ant, but your reaction is quite fast. You actually dodged my casual attack. A lazy voice sounded. A black whirlpool appeared behind the great godmaster. The whirlpool continued to emit black lightning. A middle-aged man slowly walked out of the vortex. When Zhuowen saw this figure, his pupils shrank. This was because this middle-aged man actually had the face of a human and the body of a snake. He was also a member of the Nuwa clan. What made Zhuowen's heart sink even more was that he could not see through this person's cultivation at all. Moreover, this person gave him a very dangerous feeling. He could even smell the aura of death. This Nuwa clan member in front of him was much stronger than him. "My lord, you really came. I really didn't expect you to really come." The great god master was very excited. He immediately got up and went to the middle-aged man's side. "Who the hell are you? Aren't you a member of the Nuwa clan? Did you send that distress signal?" The middle-aged man squinted his eyes and carefully sized up the great godmaster. He noticed the Nuwa statue in the great godmaster's hand. Yes. It was me. I'm a subordinate of Lord Gongji Lu and Lord Nic. The great god master quickly said. Although he did not know the exact cultivation of this middle-aged man in front of him, from the terrifying aura emanating from this person, he knew that this person was definitely stronger than Gongji Lu and Nic. "Oh, you're one of the more outstanding juniors in the clan. I think I've heard of you before. All right, where are they?" The middle-aged man asked casually. "They're dead. They were killed by this person. My lord, you have to avenge them." The great god master pointed at Zhuowen with an emotional expression. You're lying, right? What cultivation does this ant have? How can he kill Gongji Lu and Nic? The middle-aged man coldly looked at the great god master. Plop! The great god master was so scared that he quickly knelt on the ground and said, "My lord, I wouldn't dare lie to you. Lord Gong and Lord and I were really killed by this person. Although this person's cultivation isn't very high, his spirit has already broken through the heavens. Moreover, there's shattered divine power in his body. He's much more powerful than ordinary fifth blight cultivators." The middle-aged man's eyes lit up, and he began to look at Zhuowen with interest. He hasn't broken through the heavens, but he already has shattered divine power and heaven-breaking divine sense. I really didn't expect that such a freak would appear in the lower realms. The middle-aged man walked toward Zhuowen with large strides. He did not take any precautions. He did not take Zhuowen seriously and was only interested in him. Zhuowen's expression was grave. He knew that the middle-aged man in front of him was a powerful enemy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, he blasted out 10 divine sense sword intents. The divine sense sword intense wrapped in azure lotus flames pierced through the void and bombarded the middle-aged man. Meanwhile, Zhuowen did not even think about it. He summoned his divine ship and flew toward the galaxy. He knew that as long as he entered the galaxy, he would have a chance of survival. However, not long after Zhuowen flew out, a blade of light instantly blasted over and shattered the divine ship. Meanwhile, Zhuowen grunted and fell back, his face pale and bloodless. At the same time, not far away, the middle-aged man, who had been attacked by the 10 divine sense sword intents, was completely unscathed. "Ant, are you trying to tickle me?" The middle-aged man's eyes were calm. However, if one looked closely, they would be able to see the surprise in the depths of his eyes. This was because he had indeed felt the power of the heaven-breaking 3 transformations in the divine sense sword intents. In other words, this person's cultivation had not yet broken through the heavens, but his spirit had already reached the heaven-breaking 3 transformations. What kind of freak was this? Looks like this ant is hiding some secrets on him. Since it's like this, then I won't kill him. I'll capture him alive. The middle-aged man shrugged. He suddenly stomped his right foot and instantly teleported in front of Zhuowen before smashing his fist onto Zhuowen's body. Puchi! Zhuowen's chest was directly shattered. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his entire body flew out, smashing all the meteors along the way into pieces. So strong. Seeing Zhuowen being beaten so miserably, the divine master revealed a pleased expression. At the same time, he was filled with reverence towards the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man walked slowly towards Zhuowen and said indifferently, "The gap between us is too great. Be my captive obediently. Perhaps you can even keep your life." Chapter 3675. At the last moment, Zhuowen used the seal of joy from the Seven Emotions tablet imprint. This was Zhuowen's most powerful technique at the moment. When the seal of joy was used, the middle-aged man's mind was indeed affected, and a strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Zhuowen seized the opportunity and instantly blasted out streaks of godly soul sword essence. The terrifying green lotus fire exploded in the entire starry sky, dyeing the surrounding hundreds of millions of kilometers green. In one breath, Zhuowen blasted out dozens of godly soul sword essences. After releasing these godly soul sword essences, he burned his essence blood and fled. The moment Zhuowen fled, a divine sword that emitted a cold light swept over from the depths of the chaotic starry sky, not far away. This divine sword was pure white, and the blade was sharp and sharp. The sword suddenly pierced into the green lotus fire that the middle-aged man was trapped in. In an instant, the divine sword slashed through hundreds of thousands of times. Puff, puff. Within the explosion, there was the sound of flesh being torn apart, and then a mist of blood burst out from the explosion. Zhuowen barely returned to the edge of the natural moat, and only then did his divine thought land outside the starry sky. He also noticed the sudden appearance of the pure, white divine sword. "Duan Jipeng, you were indeed hiding nearby. How dare you sneak attack me? I want you dead." An angry roar came from the endless green lotus fire, and Zhuowen felt a terrifying energy coming from the depths of the fire. Boom! The endless green lotus fire exploded, and a barbaric figure swept out from the countless sparks. It was the middle-aged man from the Nuwa clan. No way, how strong is this guy? Zhuowen found that although the middle-aged man's body was covered in sword wounds and blood was splattering everywhere, none of the injuries were caused by the green lotus fire. This meant that the main thing that injured him was the pure, white divine sword that suddenly appeared. This fact made Zhuowen feel uncomfortable, but he also knew that it was because the gap between him and the middle-aged man was too big. Fortunately, he had already escaped into the coiling, starry sky. This middle-aged man could not enter the lower realm's starry sky unless he severed his cultivation or used a treasure to suppress his cultivation. The sword wounds on the middle-aged man's body were gradually recovering, but his gaze became cold and terrifying. The middle-aged man bellowed. His fists quickly slammed into an area of space. Because the space could not withstand his power, countless cracks began to appear. Kacha! When that part of the starry sky shattered, the elusive pure, white divine sword suddenly shot out and pierced the middle-aged man's chest in an instant when he didn't notice. Bang! The middle-aged man's pupils constricted as he flew backwards. After smashing through numerous asteroids, he barely managed to stabilize himself. However, the divine sword in his chest had already pierced through his chest. It changed direction and landed in the shattered starry sky. Zhuowen saw a young man slowly walking out of the shattered starry sky. This young man was very tall and had long hair that reached his waist. His face was fair and firm, and he was very handsome. This young man should be the Duan Jipeng that the middle-aged man spoke of. Zhuowen's gaze was solemn. He also felt the terrifying aura on this young man. This was also an elite that far surpassed him. What on earth happened? Why would two high-level shattering heaven-tier elites appear near the lower realm's starry sky? Zhuowen's heart sank. These two people who had just appeared, no matter who it was, could easily kill him, and he actually encountered both of them. Fortunately, these two people looked to be enemies. This could be considered a blessing in disguise. At the same time, Zhuowen noticed that the great god Tier Master was lying on a shattered asteroid in the distance. His body was shattered, and there was not a single part of him that was intact. This unlucky guy should have been too close to the battle just now and was affected by the aftermath of the battle, causing him to be severely injured. It could be seen that the great god Tier Master was not far from death. Ha ha, Duan Jipeng, you're really good. You actually dared to sneak attack me. Do you believe that I won't kill you? The middle-aged man slowly got up, his gaze fierce as he glared at the young man in the distance. Supremacy Hong Rue, I originally planned to keep hiding. Unfortunately, that little guy created an opportunity for me. This kind of opportunity is very rare, so I naturally won't let it go. As he spoke, Duan Jipeng glanced at Zhuowen, who was at the edge of the natural moat, and continued, those few attacks just now must have affected you greatly, right? With your current strength, you really can't take me down. In fact, you might even be taken down by me. Supremacy, Hong Rue gritted his teeth and glared fiercely at Zhuowen. Duan Jipeng was right. He had been too careless when he attacked Zhuowen, and his mind had been disturbed by the 7 emotions steel seal, thus allowing Duan Jipeng to find a huge flaw. Although his injuries were rapidly recovering, his internal injuries were very serious, and they were not so easy to heal. Moreover, these internal injuries had already begun to affect his strength. Humph! Duan Jipeng, after killing you, I'll properly entertain that ant and his starry sky. For now, you'd better worry about your own safety first. Supremacy Hong Rue snorted coldly. He clenched his fists, and a pair of golden gloves appeared on the surface of his fists. Duan Jipeng narrowed his eyes, but he was not afraid. He held the pure, white divine sword in his right hand, and began to fight with Supremacy Hong Rue. The commotion caused by the battle between the two was too terrifying. Waves of terrifying energy spread out, and they could easily tear apart the chaotic starry sky. Moreover, when the aftershocks of the battle reached spiraling starry sky, they caused violent fluctuations on the surface of spiraling starry sky. The vast spiraling starry sky began to tremble, and the starry sky in some areas began to distort, becoming a strange black hole that swallowed everything. D***MN. The commotion caused by the battle between the two of them is too great. Zhuowen's face was solemn. He took out several array flags and began to scatter the large arrays that he had set up earlier. He combined them into a complex and powerful combination array. The combination array covered a large area, and it actually covered most of the spiraling starry sky. Although the combination array's power was only at the first level of breaking through the heavens. However, Duan Jipeng and Supremacy Hong Rue were fighting far away. Hence, the combination array was barely able to block the aftershocks of the battle between the two of them. After setting up the combination array, he set up many surveillance arrays in the surroundings to observe the battle between Supremacy Hong Rue and Duan Jipeng. He could sense that the battle between the two of them was definitely because of something extraordinary. Otherwise, why would such powerful beings come to the primordial Hongmeng tree? And from the looks of it, one of them was fleeing while the other was chasing. After doing all this, Zhuowen returned to the Ryuka Valley, and his appearance returned to normal. Master Zhuo is back. After returning to the Ryuka Valley, a group of people immediately surrounded him, and they all asked about his master. Other than Mu Qinxue and a few others who were closest to Zhuowen, no one else knew that it was his original body that had returned to defeat the Jinyu army. However, Zhuowen did not tell them the truth. He only said that it was his master's credit. He knew that he would definitely leave spiraling starry sky in the future. If he could fabricate a powerful master, no one would dare to covet Ryuka in the future, and no one would dare to lay their hands on Ryuka. This was definitely a good thing for Ryuka. Chapter 3676. Zhuowen, I am truly sorry. I was also in favor of surrendering from the start. If you want to kill me, I will not have any objections. The Black King lowered his head in shame as he walked over with Lian Meng. Zhuowen waved his hand and smiled. Black King, Lian Meng, it's not your fault. Moreover, I have to thank you. In the end, you risked your life to plead for mercy for me. I owe you a favor, and let this matter pass. Zhuowen knew that the Black King, Lian Meng, and the rest were mostly coerced by the three Pure Ones. After all, the three Pure Ones were the strongest at that time, and no one could resist him. Therefore, he didn't blame them. After all, they had no choice. Thank you. The Black King, Lian Meng, and the rest looked at each other and knelt down to express their gratitude to Zhuowen. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, the entire starry sky trembled violently. Dense ripples appeared in the surrounding starry sky, as if something was shaking the starry sky. What happened? Everyone's expression changed. There are experts fighting nearby. Don't go near the edge of the starry sky. Zhuowen's expression was solemn as he briefly explained what had happened in the outside world. Finally, he gave everyone some instructions before heading to the heavenly moat. Zhuowen noticed that the battle between Honorable Hongrui and Duan Jipeng had started to move away from the starry sky. This made him heave a sigh of relief. It seems like it's because of Duan Jipeng. Zhuowen quickly thought of the young man with the white divine sword. With Honorable Hongrui's hatred for him, he would definitely want to fight near the heavenly moat. But now, the battle was moving away from the heavenly moat. This was obviously because Duan Jipeng was helping him. Is he thanking me for exposing Honorable Hongrui's weakness? Zhuowen muttered to himself. Zhuowen sat at the edge of the heavenly moat. His powerful divine consciousness started to radiate into the distance. In his divine consciousness, he saw other lower realm starry skies. These lower realm starry skies hung on the branches of the primordial chaos tree like ripe fruits. After passing through many lower realms, Zhuowen's spiritual will stopped on a branch. On the branch, Venerable Hongrui and Duan Jipeng were engaged in an intense battle. Terrifying ripples of their battles spread out continuously. Through Zhuowen's divine consciousness, he could clearly sense that Duan Jipeng seemed to be at a disadvantage. Based on their auras, one could tell that Duan Jipeng's cultivation was slightly lower than Honorable Hongrui's. Duan Jipeng, your cultivation base is one level lower than mine. You've only reached the God domain transformation stage of the heaven-crushing 7 transformations. Your divine domain can't affect me at all. I advise you to surrender immediately if you don't want to die. Venerable Hongrui's body was covered with deep sword wounds, but he didn't seem to care at all. Instead, he stared coldly at Duan Jipeng. At this moment, Duan Jipeng's face was pale, and his breathing was somewhat rapid. Venerable Hongrui was right. There was indeed a gap between their realms. Although Duan Jipeng had reached the pinnacle of the God Domain transformation stage, and was only half a step away from reaching the Celestial Demon transformation stage, Venerable Hongrui was only at the early stage of the Celestial Demon transformation stage. However, this small difference in their strength was like heaven and earth. If Duan Jipeng hadn't managed to injure Venerable Hongrui with his first move, he would have been defeated even faster. Seeing that Duan Jipeng didn't say a word, Venerable Hongrui didn't mind. He continued, "You deliberately led me to the starry sky of that ant, didn't you? I didn't expect you to have such a useless heart of pity. How boring. However, I'm not going to play with you anymore. This time, I'm going to be serious. Even if I end up with a corpse, I'll bring you back. After all, you have that kind of secret on you." Ha ha. Venerable Hongrui laughed heartily and strode toward Duan Jipeng. Moreover, with every step he took, His body grew taller by 1 foot. His aura was also growing stronger. Today, I'll show you the true power of the celestial demon transformation stage. Venerable Hong Rui's sonorous voice came from the sky. As he walked, his body grew to a height of several thousand feet. Moreover, his body continued to grow taller. Is this the essence of the celestial demon transformation stage? The celestial demon transformation? Duan Jipeng's face was pale. Looking at Venerable Hong Rui, who had grown to a height of 10,000 feet, Duan Jipeng kept retreating. The celestial demon transformation stage, Venerable Hong Rui, was much stronger than before. Duan Jipeng was afraid that he wouldn't be able to take even one hit from Venerable Hong Rui. Sword Dominion, expand. A sword-shaped mark appeared between Duan Jipeng's eyebrows. Soon after, countless sword lights appeared around him, forming a world and a territory. Divine Dominion was a power unique to the celestial demon transformation stage, Venerable Hong Rui. The divine dominion it possessed was extremely powerful. Moreover, it had a terrifying destructive power. After the sword dominion was formed, Venerable Hong Rui stepped into it. Clang, clang, clang. However, what made Duan Jipeng's face turn gloomy was that the countless sword lights in the sword dominion only managed to break through Venerable Hong Rui's skin. Do I have to use that trump card in the end? Venerable Hong Rui gripped his divine sword tightly. As he kept retreating, his gaze turned solemn. Too weak, too weak. Duan Jipeng, is this all that your sword dominion is capable of? It's even weaker than my heavy dominion. How disappointing. Venerable Hong Rui strode toward Duan Jipeng. He wasn't hindered by the sword dominion at all. Sword dominion, explode. Duan Jipeng grabbed at the void with his right hand. Venerable Hong Rui, who was in the sword dominion, was shocked. Soon after, the surrounding domain began to collapse with a loud rumble. Countless sword lights exploded like powerful explosions. Venerable Hong Rui didn't expect Duan Jipeng to have the guts to explode his own divine dominion. The divine dominion was the core power of a celestial demon transformation stage, Venerable Hong Rui. Once the divine dominion exploded, not only would the cultivator be severely injured, but his cultivation level would also drop. In the future, he wouldn't have the chance to condense his divine dominion again. He would never be able to reach the celestial demon transformation stage, Venerable Hong Rui. His future cultivation journey would come to an end. Puff, puff. The explosion of the sword dominion was indeed terrifying. Venerable Hong Rui's huge body was blown apart. Blood splattered everywhere. In the end, Venerable Hong Rui was only left with his huge head. Moreover, the head was also being crushed by the explosion. However, just as his head was about to shatter, a black lotus bloomed above Venerable Hong Rui's head. Then his head disappeared. In its place, the black lotus was shattered by the power of the divine dominion. Replacing the black lotus, Duan Jipeng's expression changed. He didn't expect Venerable Hong Rui to have such a treasure. At the most critical moment, the black lotus had saved his life. The flesh and blood beneath Venerable Hong Rui's head began to regenerate. He looked at Duan Jipeng with a cold gaze. Duan Jipeng, I didn't expect you to be so ruthless. How dare you use such a suicidal method? However, you've reached your limit. When I recover, it'll be your death. Venerable Hong Rui snorted. Chapter 3677. Looks like I'm really done for this time. Duan Jipeng looked at Honorable Hong Rui's head, which had been smashed into smithereens. His mouth was filled with bitterness. He knew that as long as Honorable Hong Rui recovered his upper body, he would be able to kill him. I can't accept this. I was so close to killing Honorable Hongrue. If I still had the strength, I could have used this opportunity to send Honorable Hongrue to hell. Duan Jipeng was unwilling to accept this outcome. Honorable Hongrue's head was slowly recovering, and his neck was growing back. However, Honorable Hongrue's face was pale. It was obvious that he had suffered serious injuries. It was strenuous for him to recover from his injuries. Poof! Suddenly, a sword essence, which was burning with the green lotus flame, flew over and hit Honorable Hongrue's head. A bloody hole appeared on his recovered head. Honorable Hongrue roared in anger. His head rolled a few rounds in the starry sky and smashed onto a meteorite. Only then did he realize that the young man he had chased had appeared on a branch of the primordial Hong tree not too far away. "It's you, Yuan." Honorable Hongrue's eyes narrowed. The young man who had appeared on the branch of the primordial Hong tree was Zhuowen. Zhuowen's mind had been observing the battle between the two of them. He was in awe. The battle between the two of them was too terrifying. It was beyond his comprehension. Whether it was Honorable Hongrue's godly demonization or Duan Jipeng's sword divine territory, they could easily kill him. In the end, he saw that both of them were severely injured. He knew that he could no longer ignore the battle. Although he did not know Duan Jipeng, he could tell that Duan Jipeng was a man of principles from how Duan Jipeng had deliberately lured Honorable Hongrue out of the starry sky. He owed Duan Jipeng a favor. Hence, he decided to help Duan Jipeng. Bang! 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 Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He did not give Honorable Hongrue any chance to catch his breath. Streaks of sword essence of the godly soul blasted toward him. The terrifying sword essence blasted across the sky and exploded on Honorable Hongrue's head. A huge green lotus flame slowly bloomed in the sky. Honorable Hongrue's shrill cry came from the huge green lotus flame. "It should be over." Zhuowen heaved a sigh of relief and came to Duan Jipeng's side. He asked in a low voice, "Fellow Taoist, are you all right?" But Duan Jipeng's expression changed drastically, and he said anxiously, "Quick, pick up my divine sword. Venerable Hongrue won't die so easily, but my divine sword can kill him." Zhuowen was stunned while a feeling of danger suddenly arose in his mind. After that, he didn't even hesitate to raise the pure white sword by Duan Jipeng's side and use it to block before him. Boom! Boom! Streaks of terrifying energy landed in front of Zhuowen and slammed into the divine sword, exploding into countless sparks. Zhuowen let out a muffled groan and flew backward, spitting out a mouthful of blood. "Despicable ant, I'm going to kill you, kill you!" Not far away, a meteorite exploded. Venerable Hongrue's head flew out of the meteorite and charged toward Zhuowen. At that moment, Venerable Hongrue's head was in a terrible state. It was badly mutilated, and no one could see his original face. It was too horrible to look at. However, Zhuowen could feel the terrifying aura that was erupting from Venerable Hongrue's head. He could see that the aura was burning like a raging fire, and his aura was increasing rapidly. "Fellow Taoist, be careful. Venerable Hongrue is burning his blood essence." Duan Jipeng hurriedly reminded Zhuowen. Zhuowen barely managed to stabilize himself. He looked at Venerable Hongrue, who was charging toward him rapidly, and his eyes were solemn. However, he didn't run away. Instead, he faced Venerable Hongrue directly. At the same time, he secretly took out a formation flag from the macro world. Bang! Venerable Hongrue's head was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of Zhuowen. Zhuowen could only use Duan Jipeng's divine sword to block the attack. He wasn't familiar with Duan Jipeng's divine sword. Although he knew that the divine sword was powerful, he didn't know how to use it. He could only use it as a defensive tool. "Ant, you're dead meat. How dare you sneak an attack on me? I'll make sure you die a horrible death." Venerable Hong-Rue was furious. He didn't hesitate to burn his blood essence to kill Zhuowen. "It's over. He can't stop Venerable Hong-Rue." Duan Jipeng smiled bitterly. He knew that Zhuowen was dead meat. Although Zhuowen was holding his divine sword, he couldn't hold on for long. Although Venerable Hong-Rue was severely injured, he was burning his blood essence now. His strength would become even more terrifying. Poof! Venerable Hong-Rue's attack landed on the divine sword. A terrifying force spread out. Zhuowen's right hand, which was holding the divine sword, exploded, and the divine sword flew out of his hand. Oh no! Duan Jipeng's face changed when he saw this. Without the protection of the divine sword, Zhuowen couldn't withstand a single blow from Venerable Hong-Rue. He was dead meat. "Ant, go to hell!" Venerable Hong-Rue laughed maniacally. He appeared above Zhuowen as if he had teleported. His huge head opened his mouth and was about to bite down on Zhuowen. He wanted to tear Zhuowen into pieces. Zhuowen's eyes were calm. With his remaining left hand, he took out the formation flag that he had prepared earlier. Instantly, with him as the center, countless formation runes appeared within a radius of 10 meters. They rotated around him like a hurricane. Blazing white light instantly engulfed Zhuowen and Venerable Hong-Rue. What? A teleportation formation? Is he trying to... Duan Jipeng thought of something, and his eyes turned serious. Venerable Hong-Rue didn't think too much. He laughed and said, "Ant, I thought you were going to kill me with other killing formations. I didn't expect it to be just a teleportation formation. You're too naive. No matter where you're teleported to, you're going to die. There's no way I'll let you go." However, Venerable Hong-Rue's face changed as soon as he finished speaking. A terrifying rule power came crashing down, suppressing his head. He couldn't move at all, let alone attack Zhuowen. "Here, this is the lower realm. You?" Venerable Hong-Rue stared at Zhuowen in shock. However, before Venerable Hong-Rue could finish his sentence, the restrictive power of the starry sky in the lower realm poured into his Tianling acupoint like rain. The power was too terrifying. Venerable Hong-Rue was seriously injured. In the end, he screamed in pain. His head swelled and exploded, turning into blood foam. On the other hand, Zhuowen had long since left this place, so he was not affected by this explosion. He had long planned to teleport Supremacy Hong-Rue to the coiling starry sky, which was the depths of heavenly chasm. He knew very well that since non-native heaven-breaking realm elites couldn't enter the lower realm, they would suffer a backlash unless they suppressed their cultivation level. After all, Venerable Hong-Rue was an elite in the celestial demon transformation realm. Even if he was seriously injured and only his head was left, Zhuowen was still no match for him. As the saying went, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Hence, Zhuowen had planned to kill Venerable Hong-Rue using this method. His plan didn't disappoint him. Venerable Hong-Rue was easily killed by him. The moment Venerable Hong-Rue's head exploded, his spirit flew out from the top of his head toward the heavenly moat. However, when Venerable Hong-Rue's spirit reached the border of the heavenly moat, it was immediately blocked by the formation. Die. Chapter 3678. Plop. Zhuowen half knelt on the ground, cold sweat trickling down his forehead. His gaze was solemn. Honorable Hong-Rue was really difficult to deal with. It took him so much effort to finally deal with him. Moreover, Honorable Hong-Rue was severely injured and had less than 1% of his strength left. If he was not injured, he could have killed Zhuowen with a flip of his hand. Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the ground. After swallowing a few healing elixirs and waiting for his shattered right arm to heal, he slowly stood up. He checked the spot where Honorable Hongrue's head had exploded. He wanted to see if his spiritual ring was still there. However, to Zhuowen's disappointment, he did not find the spiritual ring. He guessed that Honorable Hongrue's spiritual ring should have been crushed together with his body by Duan Jipeng's sword dominion. Zhuowen felt that it was a pity. He flew out of the natural moat and arrived at the branch where Duan Jipeng was. He picked up the white divine sword and threw it to Duan Jipeng, who was still lying on the ground. You're not dead? Duan Jipeng stared blankly at Zhuowen, who appeared in front of him, unharmed. Although Honorable Hongrue had been severely injured and his strength had decreased greatly, the little guy in front of him had not broken through the heavens. He should not be a match for Honorable Hongrue. However, the little guy appeared in front of him in one piece. Honorable Hongrue, on the other hand, was nowhere to be seen. As long as one was not a fool, one could tell that Honorable Hongrue was most likely dead. You killed Honorable Hongrue? Duan Jipeng asked cautiously. I've already dealt with Venerable Hongrue. Fellow Taoist, take this first. Zhuowen threw a healing elixir to Honorable Hongrue. He could tell that Duan Jipeng's injuries were severe. If he did not take the healing elixir, it would be difficult for him to recover. Duan Jipeng took the healing elixir from Zhuowen in a daze. He was so shocked that his mouth formed an O shape. Fellow Taoist, this healing pill of yours is completely useless to me. After coming back to his senses, Duan Jipeng shook his head and returned the healing divine pellet to Zhuowen. Then he took out a green divine pellet from his spirit ring. The divine pill that Duan Jipeng took out was extremely rich in medicinal power. The medicinal power that flowed out condensed into a red-crowned crane that circled around Duan Jipeng and flapped its wings continuously. Zhuowen's expression turned serious. The divine pill that Duan Jipeng had taken out was definitely a heaven-breaking divine pill. Furthermore, it was considered an extremely high-grade divine pill even among the heaven-breaking divine pills. This is a level 6 heaven-breaking divine pill, the Heavenly Spirit Blood Fusion Immortal Pill. It can be considered a good, healing divine pill. This thing is very precious in the 100 Outer Realms. When Duan Jipeng saw Zhuowen's expression, he couldn't help but smile and explain. However, there was a pained look in his eyes. Clearly, a divine pill of this level was priceless. After swallowing the divine pill, Duan Jipeng's complexion was obviously much better, and his body was able to move again. Fellow Taoist, may I know your name? My name is Duan Jipeng. Thank you for saving my life this time. Duan Jipeng stood up and solemnly bowed to Zhuowen. If not for Zhuowen's help at the critical moment, he would have been dead by now. In his heart, saving his life was like giving him a new lease on life. Therefore, he treated Zhuowen very seriously. My name is Zhuowen. Fellow Taoist Duan, you don't have to be so polite. If we're talking about cultivation, I'll have to address you as senior. Zhuowen said with a smile. However, Duan Jipeng shook his head. Fellow Taoist Chua, don't say that. You're my benefactor. If you call me senior, wouldn't that be too much for me? By the way, fellow Taoist Duan, that supremacy Hongrue just now was from the Nuwa clan, right? If not for your sudden help, that supremacy Hongrue wouldn't have let me go. After all, his target was me, Zhuowen said with a smile. However, Duan Jipeng shook his head and said, Fellow Taoist Chua, to tell you the truth, Supremacy Hongrue's main target was me. He chased me all the way from the 100 Realms to the primordial chaos tree. Speaking of which, I'm the one who brought you trouble. Zhuowen nodded. In truth, he had already guessed this, but he wasn't sure. At the same time, Zhuowen was also a little excited. This Duan Jipeng came from the 100 Realms, and his cultivation was also very strong. Most likely, he knew a lot about the power distribution of the 100 Realms. Moreover, although Zhuowen's divine sense had broken through to the heaven-crushing stage, he knew nothing about the heaven-crushing stage. He only knew that there were 9 changes to the heaven-crushing stage, but he didn't know the specific differences between the stages. Apart from the heaven-crushing stage, he also didn't know whether there were other stages above it. He could probably find out about this from Duan Jipeng. Fellow Taoist, Zhua, if I'm not mistaken, your cultivation hasn't broken through to the heaven-crushing stage, right? Why aren't you affected by the chaotic galaxy's pressure at all? Duan Jipeng asked in surprise. One had to realize that the chaotic galaxy's pressure was extremely terrifying. Cultivators below the heaven-crushing stage shouldn't be able to withstand such terrifying pressure. Zhuowen smiled slightly and said, I'm not sure either. Perhaps it has something to do with my divine sense being more powerful by nature. Duan Jipeng took a deep look at Zhuowen. He knew that Zhuowen didn't want to answer this question directly. After all, everyone had their own secrets, and he also had secrets that he didn't want to reveal to Zhuowen. After that, Duan Jipeng sat on a tree branch and began to recuperate while chatting with Zhuowen. After chatting for a while, the two of them became much more familiar with each other. Zhuowen learned a lot about the 100 Realms from Duan Jipeng. Zhuowen also learned why Duan Jipeng was being hunted down by Supremacy Hongrui of the Nuwa clan. Duan Jipeng was a prodigious itinerant cultivator from the Nuwa realm, and he was very famous in the Nuwa realm. The Nuwa clan had also extended an olive branch to Duan Jipeng many times, wanting to recruit him into the Nuwa clan and serve them. However, Duan Jipeng refused. Later on, Duan Jipeng fell in love with one of the granddaughters of the Nuwa clan's supremacy, Yun Fei. Originally, this was the best opportunity for the Nuwa clan to recruit Duan Jipeng, but the Nuwa clan strongly opposed their relationship. However, Duan Jipeng and Yun Fei were so in love that they couldn't distinguish between each other. In the end, the two of them secretly eloped and escaped from the 100 Realms. However, they didn't manage to escape far before they were intercepted by numerous experts of the Nuwa clan. Duan Jipeng originally thought that he was going to die, but he didn't expect that at the last moment, Yun Fei would sacrifice herself to save him. An extremely terrifying power erupted from her body and defeated all the experts of the Nuwa clan. However, Yun Fei also died because of this. Later on, Duan Jipeng learned that Yun Fei had an astral weapon fragment sealed in her body. In the future, Yun Fei would be sacrificed by the supremacy to take out the astral weapon fragment in her body and use it for himself. Yun Fei knew her fate long ago, and she had already accepted it. However, she met Duan Jipeng and fell in love with him. At the moment of certain death, she fulfilled Duan Jipeng's wish by sacrificing herself and transferring the astral weapon fragment into Duan Jipeng's body. Astral weapon? What's that? Zhuowen asked in confusion. Duan Jipeng also knew that Zhuowen was a living being from the lower realms, so it was understandable that he didn't know about astral weapons. Duan Jipeng pointed at a huge shining star far above the primordial chaos tree. The star was very big, but it was also very far away, giving off a strange feeling that it was difficult to approach. Chapter 3679. Back then, Zhuowen had learned about the ancient star system from Ma Yujia, although it was only fragmentary information. However, he could still recognize at a glance that the mysterious star suspended above the primordial tree was the ancient star system that Ma Yujia had mentioned. Speaking of which, Ma Yujia seemed to have come from the ancient star system. However, Zhuowen knew too little about the ancient star system. So he didn't know how extraordinary it was to come from the ancient star system. You actually know about the ancient star system? Duan Jipeng looked at Zhuowen in surprise. Zhuowen rubbed his nose and said, I've heard of the primeval star system from a cultivator, but this is the first time I've seen the true primeval star system. Duan Jipeng's interest was piqued, and he said, There's actually someone in the lower realm who knows about the ancient star system? Could that person be a descender from the outer realm? Zhuowen shook his head and said, He didn't come from the outer realm, but from the ancient star system. Duan Jipeng was stunned and immediately said with a serious expression, Fellow Taoist, Shua, are you joking? Zhuowen was startled. He could see that Duan Jipeng's expression was a little strange. Fellow Taoist Duan, is there a problem? Back then, that cultivator told me personally. Zhuowen thought of Ma Yujia's chubby figure. Speaking of which, Ma Yujia had always been extremely mysterious. Even now, he couldn't see through that guy's real situation. Moreover, ever since the invasion of the foreign race, Zhuowen had seen Ma Yujia in the Door of Darkness, and there had been no news of Ma Yujia in all these years. Later, when Zhuowen's strength reached the peak of this starry sky, he had actually asked Tai Qing, Demon Saint, and other almighty figures to look for Ma Yujia, but there was no news. Zhuowen knew that Ma Yujia had most likely left the starry sky. He should be bragging. It can't be true. Duan Jipeng laughed and said indifferently, Fellow Taoist Duan, why are you so sure? Zhuowen asked doubtfully, That's because the existences in the ancient star system are all supreme rulers, supreme experts. He's a true overlord who can stand shoulder to shoulder with this starry sky. This kind of overlord is extremely mysterious. They only live in the ancient star system and rarely leave. I remember that in the oldest records of the outer realms, there was an ancient overlord who came from the immemorial star system to the outer realms. The 100 regions are shaken, and all creatures are paying homage. No one dares to go against the archaic giants. There is only reverence in their hearts, Duan Jipeng said seriously. Zhuowen opened his mouth slightly, feeling incredulous. He knew how strong the 100 domains were, but the 100 domains were all worshipping a mere magnate from the immemorial star galaxy. Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? I can tell you clearly that when the overlord from the ancient star system came to the 100 domains, the laws of the 100 domains became chaotic and disasters continued. That was because the overlord from the ancient star system was too terrifying. Just by standing in the 100 domains, the 100 domains couldn't withstand the aura of the overlord from the ancient star system. If the cultivator you're talking about really came from the ancient star system, your starry sky would have collapsed long ago. Duan Jipeng shook his head. He didn't believe that the cultivator from the ancient star system that Zhuowen was talking about was real. I see, I understand. Zhuowen nodded, but he couldn't help but think of Ma Yujia's serious expression when he talked about his origin. He could feel that Ma Yujia wasn't lying or joking at that time. However, according to Duan Jipeng, Ma Yujia couldn't be an overlord from the ancient star system. After all, Ma Yujia was too weak. It seems that this guy's true origin really needs to be explained by him. Zhuowen shook his head. He didn't think too much about Ma Yujia. In his opinion, no matter how mysterious Ma Yujia's origin was, it didn't have much to do with him. His goal was to become stronger and firmly control his own fate in his own hands. Now, let me tell you about the astral soldier. The so-called astral soldier is a divine weapon or a fragment of a divine weapon that fell from the ancient star system. The astral soldier is a powerful divine weapon that surpasses the heaven breaker grade divine weapons. Even if it's just a fragment of an astral soldier, its power is comparable to a top heaven breaker grade divine weapon. In the 100 outer domains, The experts who truly stand at the peak actually have one or more complete sets of astral soldiers. When Duan Jipeng mentioned the astral soldier, his eyes were filled with sorrow. It was obvious that he was thinking of Yun Fei, who sacrificed herself for him. Zhuowen glanced at Duan Jipeng. He wanted to say something, but hesitated. In the end, he didn't say anything. Duan Jipeng understood Zhuowen's intention. He stretched out his right hand. In the center of his palm, there was a complicated pattern that looked like a black eye that was looking at Zhuowen. This is the dark chakra, the astral soldier that Yun Fei gave to me. It has all kinds of mysterious powers. Perhaps you are wondering why I didn't use the astral soldier when I was fighting with Venerable Hongrui, Duan Jipeng said, self-deprecatingly. Yes, you said it yourself. The astral soldier is very powerful. If you had used the astral soldier, you would have easily defeated Venerable Hongrui. Zhuowen said calmly. Sigh, the astral soldier is indeed very powerful. However, the price to use it is also very high. It requires a huge amount of blood sacrifice to activate the astral soldier. It requires the blood sacrifice of millions of living beings. Only after feeding the astral soldier will the astral soldier be able to unleash its power. I really can't do something like blood sacrifice, and I don't want to do it either. The only way I can activate the astral soldier is by sacrificing my blood essence. However, the consequence of doing so is that not only is the astral soldier's power ordinary, but I will also die because of the blood sacrifice. I will only use this move when my life is in danger. When Duan Jipeng said this, the corners of his mouth were full of bitterness. Zhuowen sucked in a breath of cold air. This astral weapon was so strange that it actually required a blood sacrifice to activate it. Moreover, it required such a large amount. Taoist Duan, according to what you said, won't the experts in the 100 domains who have obtained the astral soldier kill the weak wantonly and sacrifice their blood to the astral soldier? Zhuowen said with a frown. Duan Jipeng nodded and said, Indeed, such things happen. However, they are very rare. When those experts perform a blood sacrifice, they usually start a war between realms. There are 108 realms in the 100 outer realms. Every time there is a realm war, there will be hundreds of millions of lives lost. Those powerhouses usually use the lives of the dead to achieve their goal of blood sacrifice. Hearing this, Zhuowen frowned slightly. It seemed that the 100 domains in the 100 domains were even more dangerous than the lower realm. The killings there were even more terrifying and cruel. In order to nurture a divine weapon, they could start a war between domains where millions of living beings would die. After Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng talked about the astral soldier, they couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Chapter 3680. After a round of conversation, Zhuowen benefited greatly. The doubts he had about cultivation in the past were all resolved. Moreover, Zhuowen's future cultivation direction became clearer. Apart from that, Zhuowen also learned about the specific divisions of the heaven-breaking tier from Duan Jipeng. The heaven-breaking 9 transformations were the divine fetus transformation, spirit transformation, heaven-trampling transformation, void god transformation, 5 elements transformation, yin-yang transformation, god realm transformation, celestial demon transformation, and ancient star transformation. Among them, the divine fetus transformation was a transformation of the physical body. It would become extremely tough and strong and could adapt to the harsh environment of the chaotic galaxy. This was also why only heaven-breaking tier cultivators were qualified to enter the chaotic galaxy. Cultivators below the heaven-breaking tier would die, without a doubt. However, Zhuowen was a freak. After all, he had cultivated the shattered divine power in advance, and his physical body was also tempered by the shattered divine power. It was not inferior to the physical body of a divine fetus transformation cultivator. That was why Zhuowen was able to come and go freely in the chaotic starry sky without being affected. It was said that the spirit transformation was a transformation of the divine sense, and the heaven-trampling transformation allowed one to step on the sky in the 100 domains outer realm. Zhuowen learned from Duan Jipeng that the energy level of the 100 domains outer realm was much higher than that of the lower realm. Therefore, all matter and even gravity were extremely strong. It was far from what the lower realm could compare to. Cultivators before the heaven-trampling transformation couldn't fly at all. They could only run on the ground like mortals. Duan Jipeng's God realm transformation would condense his own God realm. Regardless of whether it was attacking or defending, God realm was extremely convenient and powerful. After the God realm transformation, the main characteristic of the celestial demon transformation was that one could transform into a celestial demon body. One's strength would increase by hundreds or thousands, and it was extremely explosive. Supremacy Hong Rui was a celestial demon transformation cultivator. The celestial demon he transformed into was extremely difficult and powerful to deal with. If Zhuowen hadn't used the right strategy, he and Duan Jipeng would have died. After Duan Jipeng recovered slightly, he slowly stood up and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Zhuo, I'll never forget your life-saving grace. I don't have anything good on me. Take this halberd." Zhuowen took the halberd. His eyes instantly became serious. He could feel the terrifying aura contained within the halberd. The halberd's aura even surpassed the snake shadow divine staff that he had just obtained. Without a doubt, this halberd was a divine artifact that surpassed Heavenbreaker rank 3. This is the Moon Shaman weighted halberd. It's a level 4 heaven-crushing divine weapon. I hope you don't mind, Duan Jipeng said with a smile. Meanwhile, Zhuowen was seeing stars. Duan Jipeng was really worthy of being an elite at the God domain transformation realm. He had casually gifted him a level 4 heaven-crushing God tool. This was really a valuable gift. Although Zhuowen wanted to decline, he couldn't resist Duan Jipeng's enthusiasm and could only accept it in the end. After Duan Jipeng saw that Zhuowen had accepted the Moon Shaman weighted halberd, he asked solemnly, "Taoist Zhuo, did you teleport Venerable Hong Rui to your lower realm's starry sky and make use of the starry sky's law to kill him?" Zhuowen was stunned for a moment before he nodded. "Then you're in trouble." Duan Jipeng said seriously, "What do you mean?" Zhuowen asked solemnly. Venerable Hong Rui was a venerable of the Nuwa clan. He was considered one of the higher-ups in the Nuwa clan. Such a person would definitely leave a trace of his aura in the clan's ancestral hall. As long as Venerable Hong Rui dies, the Nuwa clan's Grand Venerable will be able to use that trace of his aura to search for the place where Venerable Hong Rui died. Venerable Hong Rui died in your starry sky. If the Nuwa clan's Grand Venerable finds out, I don't think I need to tell you what will happen to your starry sky. Duan Jipeng sighed softly. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He didn't expect the Nuwa clan's Grand Venerable to have such a trick up his sleeve. Venerable Hong Rui died in the starry sky. If the Grand Venerable really came to find him, he would definitely find the starry sky. When that time came, it would be really troublesome. No matter how strong the Grand Venerable is, he shouldn't be able to resist the suppression of the starry sky's law, right? As long as the living beings in the starry sky don't come out, the Grand Venerable won't be able to do anything to us. Zhuowen said solemnly. Duan Jipeng shook his head and smiled bitterly. Fellow Taoist Zhuo, your thinking is too simple. The Grand Venerable is an existence that surpasses the heaven-crushing realm. With his strength, he can destroy any starry sky in the starry sky. However, The price to pay for destroying a starry sky in the starry sky is extremely high. Existences like him rarely do such things. However, if he really finds out that Venerable Hong Rue died in your starry sky, the Grand Venerable will really destroy the starry sky. Zhuowen was stunned. His expression became extremely ugly. According to Duan Jipeng, wouldn't the Niuwa clan be doomed? Fellow Taoist Duan, is there no other way to conceal Venerable Hong Rue's aura? Zhuowen asked anxiously. Duan Jipeng's eyes flashed. He gritted his teeth and said, I do have a way. The dark chakra I hidden in my body can conceal Venerable Hong Rue's aura. However, a blood sacrifice is required to activate the dark chakra. If I use my own blood sacrifice, I'll die for sure. Unless someone shares the sacrifice with me, I'll be able to avoid death, but my vitality will be greatly damaged. Zhuowen agreed without any hesitation. He expressed his willingness to share the blood sacrifice with Duan Jipeng. After the two of them reached an agreement, Duan Jipeng extended his right hand. The symbol on his palm started to squirm and wriggle. In the end, it left his palm and hovered in front of him. This was the image of an eye formed by complex veined patterns. However, this image was incomplete. Zhuowen could sense a very strange and unusual aura from this eye. This aura was something he had never experienced before. He knew that this was the power of a star weapon. Duan Jipeng bit his thumb and aimed the wound at the dark chakra. The dark chakra, I pounced toward Duan Jipeng, like a cat that had smelled blood. It started to furiously absorb Duan Jipeng's blood essence. Soon, Duan Jipeng's face became extremely pale, and his body started to tremble. When Duan Jipeng was about to reach his limit, he quickly sealed the dark chakra and stopped the bleeding. Fellow Taoist Zhua, all you have to do is follow my instructions. Remember, if you can't hold on, you must tell me. I'll stop the dark chakra in time. Duan Jipeng solemnly warned. Zhuowen nodded. He also cut his thumb and aimed the wound at the dark chakra. Duan Jipeng also released the seal on the dark chakra. The dark chakra once again pounced on Zhuowen. Zhuowen could feel that his blood essence was quickly being sucked away by the dark chakra. Soon, Zhuowen felt dizzy. His face was pale. This is a sign of excessive blood loss. But the dark chakra didn't stop. Instead, the speed of absorption became even faster. It's as if it wants to suck Zhuowen dry. Duan Jipeng found that Zhuowen couldn't hold on any longer. He quickly sealed the dark chakra again. Plop! Zhuowen's legs were weak, and he almost fell to the ground. He gasped for breath. His eyes were full of fear. Is this enough? Zhuowen looked at Duan Jipeng. It should be enough. But with the current power of the dark chakra, it won't be able to cover the aura of Venerable Hong Rue, who has already entered the fiend god transformation state for a long time. I think it can cover for about 10,000 years at most. Chapter 3681. Zhuowen's expression was somewhat gloomy. There were more than 100 billion living beings roaming the universe. It was truly too many. Unless he invaded other galaxies like Golden Corner Starry Sky and took over other galaxies, he might be able to properly arrange all the living beings in the universe. But he obviously wouldn't do something like invading another's territory for no reason. And the space of his great world was limited. It simply couldn't accommodate all the living beings in the universe. Fellow Taoist Duan, what's the specific cultivation level of that Niuwa clan's grand sovereign? Zhuowen asked with a gloomy face. Duan Jipeng was startled, but he didn't think too much about it. He said, I don't know about the grand sovereign's specific cultivation level. In any case, it's beyond heaven crushing. The realm above heaven crushing is the great carefree realm. At this realm, one can be free and unfettered. They can freely roam the chaotic universe, and their strength is even more terrifying. Such existences are the pinnacle of powerhouses in the 100 domains. They're supreme existences that can dominate a region and all living beings. At this point, Duan Jipeng's eyes revealed yearning and reverence. Good. If I can reach the great carefree realm within 10,000 years, even if that grand sovereign really finds out about the universe, he probably won't dare to go too far. Zhuowen said. Duan Jipeng nodded and said, powerhouses of the great carefree realm are all peerless figures. Under normal circumstances, they won't casually get into conflict. If you really reach the great carefree realm, the grand sovereign won't act recklessly. What did you say? You want to reach the great carefree realm in 10,000 years. Duan Jipeng thought of something and suddenly turned his head to look at Zhuowen in shock. He repeated his question. I said, if I reach the great carefree realm in 10,000 years, then I'll be able to protect the universe. Zhuowen said seriously. Duan Jipeng face-bombed and said somewhat speechlessly, fellow Taoist Zhuo, I think you'd better give up on this idea. It's basically impossible to reach the great carefree realm in 10,000 years without breaking the heavens. In the 100 domains, 10,000 years is as short as a snap of a finger. You're already a genius if you can reach the heaven-crushing fifth transformation in such a short time, but to reach the great carefree realm, then, at this point, Duan Jipeng shook his head. His meaning was very clear. He felt that Zhuowen was just talking nonsense. Zhuowen smiled, but didn't say anything. In fact, only he himself knew that after his soul merged with the primordial stone, his comprehension ability was absolutely unimaginably powerful. One had to know that he had cultivated from the first to the fifth blight in less than 50 years. If he were to enter the 100 domains, he would be able to sense even more powerful energies and laws. In that case, his cultivation speed would only be faster than roaming the starry skies. He was confident in himself. Of course, if he couldn't reach the great carefree realm in 10,000 years, he would try his best to bring the creatures roaming the starry sky into the big world. Fellow Taoist Duan, do you have any treasures that can suppress your cultivation base? If you do, then come with me to travel the starry sky as a guest. Let me do my part as a host, Zhuowen said with a smile. Duan Jipeng shook his head and said apologetically, fellow Taoist Zhuo, I'm sorry. I don't have any treasures that can suppress my cultivation base, and my cultivation base is too high. It's even more difficult to suppress my cultivation base, so I won't be going as a guest. With fellow Taoist Zhuo's aptitude, you should be able to come to the 100 domains soon. If fate allows it, let's meet in the 100 domains. With that, Duan Jipeng took out a divine ship from his spirit ring and jumped onto the deck. He waved at Zhuowen and drove the divine ship away. Zhuowen silently watched Duan Jipeng's figure disappear completely before returning to the starry sky. His face was extremely pale, and his aura was extremely weak. The dark chakra I had absorbed almost 60% of his essence blood, which made his body feel like it was emptied. He was extremely weak. He had to go back and recuperate for a while. Zhuowen cultivated in the Ryuka Valley for 10 years before barely recovering. During these 10 years, Zhuowen basically stayed in the Ryuka Valley with his family. Occasionally, he would guide Zhuo Junan's cultivation. At the same time, Zhuowen had gathered many top craftsmen in the starry sky. He wanted to gather these craftsmen to melt down all the heaven-breaking divine artifacts he had on him and reforge them into a divine spear. He knew that the 100 domains were full of danger. He had several heaven-breaking divine artifacts on him. Other than taking out one to suppress the Ryuka Valley, the rest were not very useful to him. So he planned to melt down all the divine artifacts and reforge them into a divine spear. It had to be said that the heaven-breaking divine artifacts were indeed too strong. Zhuowen used the green lotus fire of his divine soul sword, intent to burn them for 10 years before he could barely melt them down. After the divine artifacts were melted down, the next step was for him to gather the divine craftsmen to forge the shape of the divine spear. In the courtyard of the Nether Realm, a tall young man who looked somewhat similar to Zhuowen was practicing a fist technique. The wind from his fists whistled like dragons and tigers, and its power was unparalleled. Not far away from the young man, Zhuowen and Mu Qinxue stood side by side, silently watching the young man practice his fist technique. After a set of fist techniques, the young man hurriedly came in front of Zhuowen and Mu Qinxue and asked hopefully, "Father, how is my cultivation of the Heaven Path fist technique?" This young man was in his early 20s, and there was still a hint of childishness on his face. This young man was Zhuowen and Mu Qinshue's son, Zhuojun, and in the past 10 years, Zhuojun's cultivation speed was extremely fast. 10 years ago, he was only at the peak of the true immortal realm. But now, he had cultivated to the void sky 8 steps. This kind of cultivation speed made even Zhuowen blush with shame. Very good. You've already cultivated the Heaven Path Fist technique to greater mastery. If you use the Heaven Path Fist technique, even the Life Enlightenment Realm cultivators in the void Sky 9 steps might not be your match. Zhuowen said with satisfaction. Hearing this, Zhuojun and beamed with joy. Mu Qinxue also couldn't help but smile. Suddenly, a servant came in from outside the courtyard. "Lord Zhuo, there's news from the Divine Cauldron that the forging of the spear has been completed. Now, all that's left is for you to use the divine fire to complete the final step." The servant said respectfully. Zhuowen's eyes shone brightly. The Divine Cauldron was the place where the divine blacksmiths were forging the spear. "Father, I also want to go and take a look." Zhuojun's eyes lit up as he spoke. "All right, come with me. But after entering the Divine Cauldron, don't do anything. Just watch from the side." Zhuowen instructed Zhuojun and hurriedly nodded in agreement. Thus, Zhuowen brought Zhuojun and followed the servant out of the courtyard. The Divine Cauldron was actually a palace in the southernmost part of the valley. Beneath the palace was the hottest earth fire in the entire galaxy. In the past, Zhuowen had borrowed the power of the earth fire and combined it with the green lotus fire to melt the heaven breaker grade divine artifacts, especially the moon shaman weighted halberd that Duan Jipeng had given him. Because it was a heaven breaker grade 4 divine artifact, it had taken him a lot of effort to melt it. When Zhuowen entered the Divine Cauldron, the servant guarding it bowed to Zhuowen. Zhuowen came to the center of the Divine Cauldron. There was a huge crack there. Below the crack, there was an endless amount of red magma. Above the magma, terrifying earth fire was constantly erupting. Above the earth fire, a coarse-looking spear embryo was quietly floating in the air. Chapter 3682. When Zhuojun reached the entrance, his face was flushed red, and his body was drenched in sweat. He did not take another step forward. The temperature inside the furnace was too high. Zhuojun's cultivation was the lowest here, so he could not withstand the high temperature. Zhuowen placed his right hand on Zhuojun's shoulder, and a cool energy flowed from his palm into Zhuojun's body. Zhuojun, who was still burning from the high temperature, immediately returned to normal. "Jun, and you stay here for now. The earth fire here is too strong. With your cultivation, you can't withstand it," Zhuowen said in a low voice. Zhuojun nodded obediently, but his eyes were filled with admiration when he looked at Zhuowen. "Master Zhuo." Around the crack in the center of the palace, there were dozens of old men in long robes. These were the strongest blacksmiths that Zhuowen had invited. They were the strongest blacksmiths in the universe. For the past 10 years, these blacksmiths had worked tirelessly to refine the spear for him. An old man in his 70s slowly walked forward. He cupped his hands and smiled bitterly. "Master Zhuo, the spear embryo has been refined. There's only one step left. We still need the help of Master's divine fire." "No problem." Zhuowen waved his hand and pointed his sword finger at his forehead. Immediately, a soul sword intent was released. Around the soul sword intent, a terrifying green lotus flame burst out, burning continuously. From afar, the green color was glaring and intense. The soul sword intent rushed into the space above the crack and quickly circled around the spear embryo. Then, the green lotus flame was like a maggot, completely igniting the spear embryo. At the same time, Zhuowen formed a seal with his hands, and the array below the crack was activated. Then, the sea of lava in the crack surged with terrifying waves. Finally, it condensed into a fire dragon that rushed out of the crack and into the spear embryo. The green lotus flame and the fire dragon merged together, forming an even more terrifying flame that continued to roast the spear embryo. The surface of the spear embryo began to turn red, a sign that it was being melted by the high temperature. "You can start forging the spear embryo," Zhuowen said to the surrounding refiners. The craftsmen around the crack nodded. Immediately, they took out their divine hammers and controlled them with their divine thoughts. Then, they began to hit the spear embryo continuously. The sound of metal clashing resounded in the surroundings, crisp and pleasing to the ear. As the divine hammer continued to fall, the impurities on the surface of the spear embryo gradually fell off, revealing the original appearance of the divine spear. Time gradually passed, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. When the divine hammer knocked out the last piece of impurities, the divine spear exploded with a blazing light. At the same time, Zhuowen saw a crescent moon burning with red flames above the divine spear. This crescent moon was as bright as the moon, but also as hot as the sun. An unprecedentedly terrifying aura burst out in an instant. Then, the ground began to crack, and dense cracks appeared on the surrounding palaces. The aura of the divine spear was too terrifying. Even the palace could not withstand it. Zhuowen took a step forward, and his body was surrounded by purple intent. He ignored the terrifying flames around the divine spear and grabbed the handle of the divine spear in his hand. Sizzle! The terrifyingly high temperature caused black smoke to rise from Zhuowen's palm, which was holding the spear. Zhuowen grimaced in pain, but he was indifferent. He still held the divine spear firmly in his hand. "All of you leave this place," Zhuowen shouted. Everyone in the palace hurriedly ran out of the palace. Shuijun and looked at Zhuowen's miserable appearance and could not help but shout Zhuowen's name. "Jun, and leave this place quickly. I will take care of this. Don't worry." Zhuowen gave Shuijun a reassuring look and urged the latter to leave quickly. Shuijun hesitated for a moment, but finally left the palace. He also knew that he was too weak. If he went over, he would only be a hindrance. Ka. The divine spear exploded with an even more terrifying aura. The entire palace was distorted, and cracks appeared below. The magma was annihilated. Zhuowen's eyes were burning. He held the handle of the divine spear tightly and released his spiritual sword intent. He was trying to subdue the weapon spirit of the divine spear. He could see that the weapon spirit of the divine spear had just been born. It was at its weakest. If he did not completely tame it now, he would not have another chance in the future. Shuijun and the others had not been in the palace for long when they were shocked to find that the palace had collapsed and shattered into countless pieces. Zhuowen and the divine spear rushed into the sky and engaged in a fierce battle. Shuojun and saw that Zhuowen's injuries were increasing, and he could not help but worry. Zhuowen and the divine spear fought for a full day and night. Finally, he found an opportunity. He used his spiritual sword intent to severely injure the weapon spirit. Then, he grabbed the handle of the divine spear and dripped his blood essence onto it. After dripping his blood, Zhuowen could clearly feel that he had formed a secret connection with the divine spear. The weapon spirit of the divine spear had been severely injured and could not resist. Just like that, it dripped his blood on it. At this moment, Zhuowen's body was dripping with blood. The corners of his mouth were full of blood. In order to subdue the weapon spirit of the divine spear, he had paid a considerable price. Fortunately, this weapon spirit had not matured yet. It could only unleash a small portion of the divine spear's power. Otherwise, Zhuowen really could not subdue the divine spear. He might even be destroyed. This divine spear is even stronger than the moon shaman-weighted halberd. It has probably reached the level of heaven-breaking tier 4. Zhuowen felt the terrifying aura coming from the divine spear. He discovered that on the blade of the divine spear there was an image of a crescent moon. And what was strange about this crescent moon was that its surface was actually burning with raging flames. This image was exactly the same as the crescent moon that appeared in the sky when the divine spear was just born. Zhuowen held the handle of the divine spear with his right hand and suddenly waved it in the air. Instantly, a terrifying power spread out. With Zhuowen as the center, the surrounding tens of billions of miles of space gradually distorted. Zhuowen was frightened and hurriedly put away the divine spear. Only then did the distorted space return to normal. He just waved it casually, and this space almost could not withstand it. It was indeed worthy of being the Earth God spear that had fused with several divine tools. Since there is a crescent moon image burning with flames on the spear blade, then let's call it the half-moon god fire spear. Zhuowen muttered to himself and gave this newly born divine spear a rather appropriate name. When Zhuowen landed on the ground, those dozens of weapon refiners hurriedly went forward and congratulated Zhuowen for obtaining a divine tool. Zhuowen was rather happy and let them all go and receive their rewards. Those dozens of weapon refiners were even more beaming with joy. One had to know that Zhuowen invited them over and gave them an extremely attractive reward. Now that the divine spear had been refined, they could not wait to receive their rewards. They were just waiting for Zhuowen's words. "Father, you are so powerful. Such a powerful divine spear was subdued by you." Zhuojunen went forward and looked at Zhuowen with admiration. "Junen, help me back first."